I don't like how
I
can't get into board meeting.
Let's call the order, and we'll do a pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's nice. Oh yeah, silence your cell phones, please. I have to do mine because
You're looking at me when you said
Okay, roll call.
Here. Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here. All right, it's a public hearing. Conduct public hearing. Is this when I read this?
Yes, you have a script there.
Yes. Quorum being present, first order of business is to hold a public hearing on the budget. Prepared in tentative form is set forth in the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Education held on June 9th, 2020. The Secretary of the Board of Education has submitted affidavits and certifications of publication from the Landmark and Suburban Life stating that a tentative budget for District 208 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021 was placed on file and was conveniently available at the district's administrative offices. Notice was given that a public hearing on said tentative budget will be held at 7 p.m. on September 8th, 2020. Due notice has been given of the public hearing on the budget and all other statutory requirements preliminary to the holding of such public hearing has been complied with. Dr. Skinkis and Dr. Mastana will present and explain the 2020-2021 budget and answer any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Smithing. Ms. Matana and myself have worked on the budget since going back to last April. We met several times over the summer with the Finance Advisory Council. We've taken into consideration the impacts of COVID-19 and the transition of lost revenues under COVID-19 for such things such as property tax collection rates, not being able to rent out the building, not being able to have any type of income from our commissions from our food service providers. So all that's been taken into account. Ms. Matana has done a good job organizing the budget as well as creating some summaries, and I will allow her to explain those now to the board. We are looking at a deficit for next year, a rather large deficit, over $1 million, closer to 1.7 million, or 1.6, between 1.6 and 1.7. So I'll allow Ms. Matana to touch on those items now.
Thank you. I'd like to begin on Board Book page 6. This is the executive summary for fiscal year 21 budget. As you can see, the total operating fund revenues, which is listed in green, is $25,854,083. The total operating fund expenditures, which are listed in red, are $27,454,083. As a result, you'll see that this results in a $1.6 million deficit for this fiscal year. As Dr. Skinkis discussed, some significant changes since the August meeting when you last saw this budget. We decreased property tax appeals by roughly $34,000, which will increase overall revenue because these are tax appeals. We also increased the revenue budget to include back some pay-to-participate fees, which we'll discuss later tonight. We decreased the Allstate accounts by roughly $14,000 due to the anticipation of very few or no state competitions. These accounts were strictly for one a team or an extracurricular qualified for a state event. Decreased athletic paid services and dues and fees accounts by almost $17,000 due to shortened athletic seasons as well as fewer competitions and less tournaments, which often cost some additional money. And then we decreased transportation by $33,000 for athletics and then some for field trips as well. We had already decreased field trips, we just decreased it a little bit more. We anticipate even when we're back in person that students won't be taking a lot of field trips this year. So if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, you can see it at the very bottom right now. You'll see with our expected operating fund balance as a percent of operating expenditures at the end of this fiscal year 21 would be 42.95%, and this is without the $2.9 million that's reserved for the possible field project. This number is important because it means that next year, if we had no additional revenue and we spent all the money that we are anticipating spending this year, we would be able to operate for 42.98% of the year before we would run out of money and need to borrow or do something. So that's why that number is important that we always look to. There were 2 questions submitted, and they were both asking about the total budgeted revenue and expenditures. So looking at budget versus budget for fiscal year 20 versus fiscal year 21. And those answers are found on board book page 12 for revenue and board book page 30 for expenditures. We compare line item by line item and then the accounts overall. But roughly we are anticipating less revenue this year by budgeted revenue this year by roughly $673,000. And expenditures, an increase of $207,000. Normally, again, as Dr. Skinkis said, we would be expecting more revenue this year, but due to COVID, that's where we've taken a significant hit in our budget.
Kristen, could you repeat those numbers again, please?
So the revenue was a decrease of $673,918, and the expenditures was an increase of $207,470. And those are all the submitted questions, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Kristen, provide a little more of a summary. Do you want to just calculate on the expenditure and revenue analysis, just kind of where we said the big drop-offs were? I know you touched on that a little bit right now, but I know you and I made a quick chart just so people are like, well, because in our 5-year projections, if somebody looked back to last spring, we were not projecting this large of a deficit.
Correct. So I touched on the changes that have been made since the last time the board saw the budget, but some additional items are we budgeted typically at 99% collection for property taxes, and this year we budgeted at 97%. So that has a significant impact on revenue of roughly $400,000. Additionally, rental revenue was roughly, I believe, $80,000 that we normally would get. Student fees were decreased. We normally budget about receiving 85% of the student fees that we assess, and this year we bumped it down to 80%. On some of the expenditure side, some of the things that we have seen due to COVID this year are specifically this one that comes to my mind is not due to COVID, but special education tuition. We've had the same number of students graduate that are entering as freshmen, but some of our freshmen have some more significant needs, as well as some of our existing students, their placements have changed. And so that's resulted in an increased line item in special education tuition of $300,000 roughly. I'm trying to think, Dr. Skinkis, off the top of my head as I pull up the list that we presented last board meeting.
Yeah, I think those are the large ones. Obviously, you're going to have traditional increases in our health insurance. You're going to have the salary increases. Those are the traditional expenditures. But I mean, if you think about it, every 1% of property tax collections anywhere from $200,000 to $230,000. So I mean, we usually collect it. What we put down in the budget usually is 99. To drop 97 right there is almost $500,000, like Kristen said. So that's the largest one to see. And at this point in time, our property tax collection is only at about 33% as of Friday, roughly, in the 30% of the 45%.
That has now increased to roughly 80% for this fiscal year. I think there was a delay. I don't know if it was a delay at Cook County or if it was a delay at the Township Treasurer or a combination of both But we did, since last week, we did receive some additional money that got deposited into our accounts.
Okay.
So, quick question on the special ed expense increase. Just to clarify and for the group, that is an increase regardless of COVID.
Correct.
Is there any additional COVID impact on special ed?
There is not.
So the process the board will take is tonight we would approve the hearing. Kristen will fill out the formal, after the hearing, later in the agenda tonight, the board would formally approve the budget. Kristen submits that budget before October 1st to the state, and then our budget's adopted officially. Like I said, we've had this tentative budget, we've been looking at it since June, so June, July, August, it's been a topic of discussion with the board, so I'm anticipating that's probably why there's not as many questions. So if there's no other questions, we can open it to any visitor comments
Yeah,
on the budget.
I just wanted to kind of make a couple statements here. I guess it's not more of a question, it's a statement. I was doing a 5-year comparison here, you know, and the revenue's gone up 8.4%, or $2 million, and the expenditures have gone up 16.5%, or almost $4 million, 3.7 million. So our expenditures are definitely outpacing our revenue at a 2-to-1 clip. And I'm looking at where this money, expenditures is going. General education's gone up 10.7%, and special education has gone up 52.5%. I think this is something we really got to focus on, and there's not a lot we can do about it, but focus on where the money is coming from and going to in the next 5 years. Because this pace, if we go up another $2 million in the next 5 years, which is what we're on track to do, we're out of money. So we've got to really think about it. And it's not about a senior coming off and freshman coming on, or actually a senior, because there's a 7-year plan. Administration's gone up 25%, operations 2%, athletics almost 10%, a little less than that. But so I think these are some things that as we go into, when we come out of COVID, because it will end, and we come into we spend out and we spend some of that working, some of that with operating fund balance to get through there, the fund balance that we're using this year. And we're glad we have that fund balance, quite frankly, right now, because we need it for the COVID. And we need it to do the right things for the right people to get the kids back in school eventually, right? So, is there any other comments? And then we'll open up for the public discussion. So the meeting will now open for public discussion for all persons desiring to be heard at this time. This is public discussion for the budget. We have another discussion period for other matters. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on the budget? Okay. All right, seeing that there are no further comments from the public, can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Is there a formal, or can I just?
You could just make a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn the formal hearing for the budget.
And we can do an all in favor.
In a second.
Second.
Ms. Salas or Ms. Sierra? Wes?
Now we do a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. I would declare the public hearing on the budget completed, and the regular meeting will now proceed. All right. Discussion, information items, COVID-19 update.
As the boards are well aware, we are through our 2 full weeks of remote learning. This week we have a shortened week, obviously, with Labor Day. So Dr. Freitas and his team have been gathering some hard numbers and also trying to keep a pulse by surveying every 2 weeks the staff as well as the parents and students. So I will let Dr. Freitas speak to that. Also present tonight is Ms. Augustine and Ms. Lindquist. If there's any additional comments, they can answer. But a majority of this will come from Dr. Freitas. And then we did receive several questions from board members. I shared those with the building administration. So tonight in your presentation, if you could try to address those, be appreciated. And then at the end, we can discuss. Ms. Sierra had one final question of like, well, what are we going to start using to measure how to come back or eventually to get in person? And I think that will be more of a question I could lay out for the board a little bit. Okay, Dr. Freitas.
Good evening, greetings, Laura, Bill, Gina, Wes, Mona, Tom, Deanna. Nice to see everybody here. Guys, onward, ever onward. Week 3 of remote learning. Guys, let me tell you how things are going. Guys, every week I send an email to the staff members, and I just want to read you a little highlight. You know, I've been doing this since I started last year. So this will be I believe my 39th, weekly message that I sent to the staff. I just took a little piece. Just so you guys know what a virtual classroom looked like, the things that are happening. So Ms. Zimmerman, one of our art teachers, has transformed students' rooms into art studios. It was beautiful to be part of that class. I saw students right there, right on their bed, right on their desk, working and molding, cups to their texture, to their like. It was a beautiful sight to see art at home. I got to see Mrs. Sloan, and he was teaching students about production possibilities curve. And that's all I'm researching now, PPC, going back to my math. And having students work on in break rooms and students present to one another. Mr. Schultz has students playing the role of statisticians and helping farmers produce better outcomes in AP Stats. So our teachers are engaging students, giving them roles, and transforming their bedrooms into authentic classrooms. It's been a beautiful sight to see. Our students are inviting me to virtual lunches. I'm eating with some of these students, It's been great. And what's importantly, as students are eating together. Hey, let's Zoom, guys, let's Zoom. And they're sharing, and breaking bread virtually together. Our clubs are meeting virtually and in person, so student engagement is still moving forward. And our athletes are shining. I'm sure you guys have seen me on the tennis courts, at the cross-country meets, and on the golf courts. So our students are engaged virtually, they're engaged in extracurriculars, and they're engaged in athletics. RB is continuing, RB is living, RB is moving forward. And for everybody listening, every Monday from 8 to 8:15, I will be on Instagram Live, providing students and parents updates on the great things that are happening at RB. So guys, catch me Monday on Instagram Live from 8 to 8:15, okay? And if I have a staff meeting, guys, just give me a few minutes, okay? I'll get on, all right? Now I'd like to report some of our data, starting with our teacher attendance. So teacher attendance for week 1 was 97.5%, and teacher attendance for week 2 was 94%. So why the difference? Week 1, I didn't include staff members that weren't FMLA. Week 2, I did. But so if I do include staff members that are FMLA, we're right there about the 94, 95 range. So as you can see, our staff, they're committed, they're teaching, and they're present for our students. The next update that I would like to share is student attendance. I know the board brought that last quarter as a concern. Because here at RB, we're used to 94, 95% and above, right? Was considered good attendance. Week 1, we were at 96.3% student attendance, and week 2, we were at 96.85%. So I want to say those are pretty good numbers, those are high numbers, and if we stay on track, right, cross our fingers. I know things are hard to do week to week, but we should surpass our averages. We've always averaged about 94 and some change in years prior, but so right now our attendance numbers for both staff and students are looking pretty good. Next, I would like to share an executive summary of the survey that I sent to teachers. I had 40 respondents. I gave this survey at the end of day 1, week 1. So I'm thinking to myself, I probably need to do a follow-up survey. I did leave it up open for 2 days. In this survey, asked the teachers, please describe a positive experience, and I just took themes from that. So one positive experience was interacting with students and seeing their faces virtually. Teachers value seeing their students. Exploring with students how to successfully log into a virtual meeting, reviewing Schoology and classroom expectations. And there were, at least from that small sample, there were few to no tech issues. Describe a challenging experience. The 5-minute passing period on Mondays is too short. I've been in virtual classroom, I participated. Guys, it takes about 3 to 4 minutes to log in, log off. Sometimes you need to charge your computer. Sometimes, your connection is buffering, your signal is weak. There are just many challenges. But you know what's special? I've seen teachers stay a minute or two after to continue engaging students. For those that teach, guys, it's hard to tell students, stop, I gotta go to my next period. Me as an administrator, I always say, you answer that student's question, because a minute now could save 30 minutes to an hour of frustration later on. So 5 minutes on Mondays is a little too short, and you'll see it in the student survey as well. Guys, remote learning and teaching is a whole new ballgame, right? There are new pitfalls that we need to jump through, new lesson planning, new ways of giving feedback, new way of grouping and having students collaborate. So it's been a challenge. And then a challenge within that, there have been, some tech issues. What support do you need? The teachers need continued PD support using technology for learning. We have provided many opportunities, but I think there's gonna be something that is ongoing. It's not gonna end. And the last two questions that I asked the staff members, how confident do you feel teaching remote learning? 82% of staff members felt somewhat to very confident in teaching remote learning, And my last question that I was, how was the level of engagement as measured by attendance? 90% of respondents felt students were engaged to highly engaged as measured by attendance. Moving on to the next survey. Next, I surveyed the students, and if we can show that there, please, in the presentation.
46, Mayor.
So the first question that I asked students was, is the current remote learning schedule, the 7-period day schedule, meeting your expectations for learning? 71% of students said yes, 28.9% said no. Is the 5-minute passing period on Monday sufficient? 67% of students said no, 32% said yes. Are classes being conducted via Zoom, Google Meets, or other live virtual platforms? 98.8% of students said yes. How engaging is remote learning? Again, guys, this question is tricky because I asked this question as it relates to attendance, and as a follow, maybe I separated, have an engagement question and an attendance question. But as you can see there, if I group the 3 and the 5 from not engaged, and the 5 is highly engaged, and it did come out in the original survey, just when you printed it, for some reason, it did not come out those descriptors. But we have there about 72% of students that could say that they were engaged or somewhat too engaged. So, engagement is occurring. The last question that I asked students and parents, as you see, are teachers' virtual hours after the last schedule period helpful? 87% said yes, 12.9% said no. And these were some of the questions and comments and general feedback that I received. Again, they may have been repeated multiple times. I try to put themes from the survey. Remote learning, according to students, is going well. We're doing breakout rooms, sharing screens, and learning new skills. I miss school. When are we going to get back to school? I saw that. Too much screen time is tough. We're getting a lot of homework, and we need longer passing period on Mondays. Those are some of the themes that repeated themselves throughout the survey.
Quick question on that, Hector, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
Was this survey done in the same time frame as the teacher survey, or was
No,
it
it was
following?
not. This came week 2.
Okay.
This
Just
was
want to make
done-
sure I'm understanding the.
Yes, this came week 2. Yep. And again, the same questions that I asked the students, I did ask the families. Is the current remote learning schedule meeting your needs? 81% said yes, 18% said no. Is the 5-minute passing period sufficient on Mondays? Surprisingly, a majority, 69% said yes, 30% said no. But if we actually in a virtual setting, I would tell you, I would lean with the students and say it is not sufficient. Okay, guys, there's transition time, screen break time, logging in time, asking questions. Guys, you really do need 10 minutes, to prepare successfully for the next period.
I think you're seeing there, Hector, is that the parents, this is the parent one, right?
That is the parent was correct.
They're telling us something by that statement, right? That's the community speaking to us. Telling us that, yeah, it's fine, because they want more learning. That's the way I take that.
Okay.
Go ahead, I digress.
Are the classes being conducted via Zoom, Google Meet? 99.6% said yes. And how engaging is remote learning? So there, right, we have about looking close to 80%, somewhat to highly engaged. Are teachers' virtual office hours after the last scheduled period helpful? 87% of parents said yes, 12.9% said no. And these were some of the general comments and feedback that I was able to derive from the comments section. Glad we went virtual and have a robust schedule with supports. Teachers are doing a nice job engaging students, doing breakout rooms and following with students. We need in-person learning and some challenges in general. Internet links not working, online inappropriate behavior, screen time and homework. Yes, we have been the victim of Zoom bombs, as many other schools, probably throughout America. And we're working hard with our new deans, to make sure that we follow up and that we implement protective measures so the Zoom bombs don't occur as often as they have been. So that was the survey results, and then my last item that I wanted to
Before we
share.
move on, can I ask a few
Of
more
course,
questions
Deanna, of
about the
course,
survey? So it says there's 498 parents and 498 students. So are these, the same questions were given to students and parents?
Correct.
And what was the general split between students and parents?
General split, meaning, Deanna, could you elaborate a little more?
How many of these were,
Of the 498, how
Thank
many
you.
were parents and how many were
Oh, no.
students?
I sent one survey to parents and I sent one survey only to students.
and they both had approximately
Exactly.
500 responses?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't e-blast with one survey to parents and I
Okay.
didn't e-blast with one survey to students.
Okay, I wanted to understand.
Yep.
And that was also done in the second week? The parent
Yes,
survey
correct.
was done around the same time?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they were.
And what's your plan for the next round of surveys? That's happening next week or the week after? You said every 2 weeks is the goal?
Yes, I do want to get a post, so I know many board members share some feedback, so, I'll be more than happy to include any questions you have, whatever you think is appropriate, but build on some of these same questions, and then, possibly, add, some more open-ended questions, to give people really an opportunity, to share what's on their mind. But definitely continue with some of these and take, I know you guys have shared some of the questions you guys would like, and add those to future surveys. Or if you guys have any question you would like to add now, feel free to share now or some future time, but I'll be more than happy to follow up with a survey according to the questions you guys have. Tom?
Well, I just would like to second, I think, Deanna's point, which is that, even, like, let's say with the teachers, I would be very interested to hear from the teachers whether they think this is useful information or what's missing. And presumably you're already doing that, but I think we can't be careful enough, because we spent the whole summer thinking that we're asking the right questions or we're going the right process. So I think right now that it's happening, I would just love to see that all members of the community are continuously encouraged to not only answer these, but also what's not on here that maybe we should be asking.
Probably a good question, Hector, would be at the end of each one for students, teachers, and parents, would be how comfortable, like gauging their interest of coming back in person, right? And that was one complaint we heard from the teachers union, is that there wasn't a virtual option even though we were trying to figure out how to come back in person, there wasn't a virtual option, so we should start gauging the interest of how soon, do you want to continue with remote learning, or would you like to progress towards in-person or some form of in-person, so that we can begin to measure that temperature, maybe a bad word, temperature during COVID. So maybe we can measure that pulse of the community, the students, and the teachers as we continue through this first quarter. Okay.
That makes complete sense, and I could see that going as a round 2 question. Yep.
Can I just jump in? I'm just wondering
Go,
how we
Gina.
can get more students to answer. Because if we only had about 500, don't we have about 1,600 kids? Like, what could we do? And I don't know, but it would be nice if we could get at least closer to 50% of our students answering, because we only know what these 500 students are telling us, not what the other 1,100.
Yeah, it's very self-selected, right?
Well, immediately, I believe I only did an e-blast. I could follow up with a phone blast. I did do a phone blast and follow up with social media.
Or could it be something that maybe gets pushed out second period on a certain day? Just, I don't know,
That's a
just
good idea.
something
That's a
so
good
that, because I'm curious on what more of the students are thinking.
Yeah, Hector-
Suggestions?
oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Lily.
Yeah, so today they sent out some social emotional survey that we were supposed to take during English. I don't know, my class didn't, but I think that was just because it was first period and maybe Mr. Forberg didn't know yet. But I would just push it out during a certain class and then have the teachers give the students a couple minutes to fill it out. Because I think if they make it part of the class time, then the students will know. And most students don't even check their emails, honestly. So if their teachers are telling them, they have a higher chance of filling it out.
Yeah, I think also that you need to tell teachers to talk about it or send it through, I don't know, Reminder Schoology, because I've seen it through email, but more students, they have to be on Schoology or Google Classroom for class. So they're going to see it that way rather than an email.
That's a good suggestion.
Thank you, guys. Great ideas. Thank you.
Oh, Hector, are you
Yes,
able to tag or flag, what year the students are? Are they freshmen? Who's giving the responses? I mean, that's something for consideration, see how the participation is between each class.
That's a good idea, but I can do that. I can add that as a feature to the survey. Class.
Just the last thing, do the students have opportunity to see these results? Because I think it should be articulated to the students that these are the results that are representing them as a student body. It may or may not be true, since we only have about 30% answering that, which may encourage more students, if this does not represent them, then to participate in the, so it'd be good if this whole student body knew how they were being portrayed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could upload it to Schoology or
Yeah, like
the
a
website. Just make it more accessible.
Yeah, and if somebody could, because you're representatives, but I don't know that the student body realizes that the board will make decisions based on those results. And so, our student body needs to understand that this is their chance to have voice.
I know over the summer that when you sent out surveys, students were aware of that. I don't know if it's changed because we're in school now or something, but
Okay.
before then, they did. I've seen people look at it that way.
Okay.
And I guess one final suggestion, I think you mentioned this, or maybe it was Dr. Skinkis, having a more open-ended question included. I have a teacher who's doing an exceptional job. I want to talk to you, and not to put more work on your desk, Dr. Freitas, but I think hearing some of these personal stories, or, my teacher hasn't logged in timely, what do I need to do? I think both ways, getting some of those anecdotal feedbacks would be really helpful to drill down on from the administration perspective, and then come back to the board with any challenges that might be out there, or real success stories.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your feedback. Okay, if there are no more comments, my last item is adding 5 minutes to the Monday passing period. As I shared earlier, and you saw in the comments I made, and I know maybe you guys have something to say, but in this remote learning environment, we need more time to transition, to take breaks from the screen, and to have our questions answered. It's a small modification which I believe puts us in a better situation and gives students more an opportunity to learn, to relax, and to really prepare themselves for the next class. So I would like on the Monday schedule to add 5 extra minutes to have a total of 10-minute passing period, which is what we have Tuesday through Friday.
Can I talk on that?
Go, Lily.
I would love to hear what you both have to say about that.
Okay, I think the 5 minutes is definitely too rushed. I was one of the people who left the comments to get rid of the 5-minute passing periods on the student survey. But teachers have always said, the bell doesn't dismiss you, we do. And the same thing goes for Zoom. They will keep us 3 minutes past the time period. And then when they keep us 3 minutes past, then we have 2 minutes left to join our next one. And it takes, at least my laptop, it takes a couple minutes to join a Zoom just for it to connect and whatnot. So 5 minutes is definitely not enough time. Barely enough time to join another Zoom, and not at all enough time to even stand up, which is really what kids need when they're on their laptop all day long. So I definitely think we should make it 10 minutes, maybe like the other days. I think that's a lot more, better for the students.
I completely agree with Lily because even technically wise, some people have slower connections. Maybe the teacher just opens up the class at that moment. Then he has a flood of kids coming in. You're losing time. And even when we're ending class, maybe he has to quickly wrap up something. And then we're ready, 2 minutes left to transition to the next class. It's not enough time. I completely agree with Lily in that part.
Dr. Freitas, can we just make sure we make some adjustments? I think the example you provided the board in the packet, I think there's some calculations that are off. So that just needs to be revised.
Yeah, it should be 12:50, excuse me.
Yeah, lunch is 45 minutes instead of 40 minutes, and then you got another 15-minute break before you start fifth period. So we need to address some of that stuff. Okay?
Yep, we'll take care of it.
And so we're also hearing that there's some Zoom etiquette. I don't know if administration can say that we really do have to end our sessions on time. For those of us who've used Zoom at business meetings, really when we open our business meeting, it's first thing said is this meeting will end at this time. We need to watch the time so it ends because many of us have another meeting to go to. And hopefully we could do that in our classes too, because that is what the business world looks like. Hours and hours of Zoom meetings with people across the country. And a lot of times you get on that meeting and you got a hard end.
Another thing in regards to Zoom, so as Dr. Freitas touched on briefly, we've had a few Zoom bombs and some things with, keep in touch with a lot of the high school districts. I think all of them are experiencing some issues with Zoom. So last week we purchased roughly for about $7,500 the Zoom accounts for each of our teachers so that they have another level of security features that they could put in place to hopefully minimize these types of distractions. So we've addressed that with the Zoom. Dr. Freitas, at some point, I know you're on the 5-minute schedule, and we brought this to the board tonight just because the board originally approved the remote learning schedule. So any amendment to the board should at least be discussed with the board before the administration makes any of those changes. But I think we had a couple questions back to some of your talking points. Can you touch on briefly teacher absences? I know that was a point that was sent in and that one of the board members wanted to discuss, or at least make sure we understand how we're approaching that.
Yeah, of course. So if a teacher's out sick, they must report their absence on Frontline. Frontline is our online absence system which we've used for years. They have to notify myself, their IC, Ms. Lindquist and Heather, communicate with families and students, and upload their lesson on Schoology. This will be an asynchronous experience with no sub. And we're also still working on some other details, but that is the general gist of our teacher protocol. You're gonna be sick, make sure you get it online, update your plans, let parents and students know so students could be prepared, for their first hour whenever they meet.
And so we sorted through some of those communication issues in the first 2 weeks. And I know you just sent something out to staff specifying again the steps they need to take. I will say to the board, even in a traditional school day, when a student may have a sub, that sub is usually pushing out the teacher's lesson plan, whether it's a reading assignment, a worksheet, or 2 worksheets, or some type of project or student-led assignment. But very rarely on a one-day absence is the substitute continuing synchronous learning right where the teacher left off, because in a high school setting, it's hard to find a sub that's going to be certified in multiple areas or even certified as a teacher. To be a sub you just have to have a bachelor's degree. And so the asynchronous should not come as a surprise to parents or to the board because that's pretty much aligns with how a sub would work on a regular school day. Now, the hope is if there's more than a day absence or any type of extended leave, that yourself, Ms. Lindquist, Ms. Bryan, the instructional coaches are working on, somebody that can pick up that synchronous learning, correct?
Yes. Yeah, if a teacher is going to be absent for multiple days, it has to be approved, and we'll make sure that we will get a substitute for that teacher. But I'll tell you guys right now it's extremely difficult, to get a sub. However, it is our job to seek, to find, no matter how long it takes. So if it's gonna be for multiple days, we will be having a sub for that teacher.
And Dr. Freitas, you also we put in a protocol, if I'm not mistaken, that if a teacher has to be absent and it's not for so if a child is sick or a parent or sibling is sick or they're quarantining, we put the administrative procedure in place so that they can continue to teach from home so those kids get synchronous instruction instead of having a sub and doing asynchronous, correct?
That's exactly correct. Yep.
Okay.
And to all the parents and students listening, I will be sending out a communication with these protocols to the community so everyone understands what we're doing here at RB, because I understand that maybe some of the frustration comes out of simply not knowing, guys, what's the procedure, what's going on. So I'll make sure that I send a parent version home so the community knows our protocols here at RB.
So is that a change?
Is what a change?
That a teacher may teach from home if they have?
No, we talked about that at our board meeting on August 19th when we did the emergency meeting, but we wanted to communicate to staff that, if you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and your child is sick, and now with the new IDPH guidelines, they can't go to school or they can't go to their daycare, and you got to stay home, but you're able to still teach, it's more effective for our students to allow that teacher to teach from home for that day, so that the kids can continue their learning instead of trying to have a sub who's just going to, it won't even have a sub, they'll just get a worksheet or asynchronous assignment. I think where the gap was in the first 2 weeks is some of this wasn't clarified, and I think some parents didn't know what to expect, and so instead of maybe coming right directly to Dr. Freitas, they went to social media first. But Dr. Freitas called each of those parents and kind of got that all worked out, so I think we're in a good place, but you're planning on sending another communication this week.
Correct, yes, as we just finalize in working with the teachers on the details for the...
But is that being monitored? Because the biggest complaint, the last time we did online, is continual interruption from children of teachers. And that's from all schools.
Yes, that is being monitored.
I mean, my daughter complained constantly, having to see toddlers crawling all over the teacher. No teaching was happening with her son.
Nope, we are monitoring that. We have a system in place.
Are we having internal subbing as well?
Yes, we're open for internal subbing, correct. It's part of our procedures.
So what is so back to, let me back this simple. So if a teacher is sick, they don't necessarily have a sub. They have a lesson plan that they put online, but then sometimes we do if it's a multiple day. Is that the
For
way I
multiple
understand it?
days, the protocol is to have a teacher. If it's a single day or single period, we may not have a teacher or some internal sub available, Wes.
During virtual remote learning.
Right.
I mean, obviously, when we have kids in the building, you have a sub in the classroom, but 90% of that sub's job is to make sure you take student attendance and you're supervising students so they're not left unsupervised.
I just want to understand it. I mean, and as for the 5 minutes, I don't want to micromanage the administration. We trust you to make the schedule the best we can. I think we were forced as a board to get involved at the beginning of school, and it was disappointing that we had to be that involved in the schedule. But I just do want to reinforce what's best for the kids, right? It's all about the kiddos. I mean, that's I think, and if 5 minutes can assist in getting us back to in-person learning, then I'm all in.
Thank you, Wes.
So.
I do want to make a comment, though, that we as a board and the administration seems to be making some nice accommodations for our teachers that our parents are not necessarily receiving from their jobs. So I hope our staff understands that the parents in this community are stressed beyond all measures. Many having to go to work, many having to go to work with their kids at home half a day learning, and having to rely on neighbors or grandparents to come in. And if they're sick or a kid, they don't have these same concessions that we're making for our staff. I just want to put that out there for administration to hear that they are getting some nice concessions.
Administration or teachers?
For teachers are getting some.
No, you guys
nice
have to come to
concessions
school no matter what.
that our community members are not getting. The community is having a very difficult time during this season.
I guess I have a follow-up question to that. I mean, because we're talking about an increased passing period that I think makes perfectly good sense based on the, based on how it works. But is that the only way? Like those additional 5 minutes, do they have to come out of the total minutes per lesson?
Well, the other way, Tom, would be for us to take it out of our professional learning community time, or PLC time. And I personally don't think, that's a good idea, knowing that we're teaching in a new medium, and I want to allow teachers to have the most time to plan effectively for your kids. So those were the two options. Either you take it from the PLC time or for the classroom time, and teachers were losing a few minutes, from the classroom time regardless, as they were transitioning a student logging in, logging off. So I thought that the 5 minutes, from the class just made the most sense.
So I guess I have one comment to make, and I mean, to Wes's point, it's not our role to micromanage the details here, but my first reaction is we're losing another 35 minutes of instruction time, right? And that doesn't sit quite right with me in terms of what we've lost overall in terms of instruction time. And the other piece is we've only had truly one Monday, right? We haven't had multiple Mondays yet, so that was the first reaction. I would like to see us, wait if we could for 2 more weeks and obviously we missed a Monday this week, to see is this truly the change that makes sense, so we're not in a matter of piecemealing changes over the course of the quarter. Are there any other changes that we're thinking about or wanting to adapt to? Is this the right time to make this? And we're early on, and we're hearing it from the students, we're hearing it from the staff, we've heard the opposite from the parents. Do we want to give this a few more weeks to gel? That's my question to the group.
I think we can, so we lost them, we had not lost, but we had our first week of the quarter was that orientation week, and we had 2 full weeks of remote learning. So this is our 3rd week, so we're really in our 4th week now, and so there's only 9 weeks left, so we're kind of at almost the midpoint. When you look at it that way, I do hear what you're saying. I do think if Dr. Freitas, if we can go, me and you can go back and look at the schedule a little bit, there might be some tweaks we can make that would provide the 10 minutes, or I think we just got to look at the numbers a little better. We're still going to have to lose some time, but maybe there's something we can do in between balancing these a little bit. Between the lunch period being 45 minutes, we can maybe shorten that on a Monday because they're having an hour in the morning for PLC time. Between that, the extra 15 minutes, that was probably just a typo from 12:45 to 1. So there might be some things we can do to maybe not have to sacrifice the 35 minutes. But if the board allows us the flexibility, I hear you loud and clear, and I will continue to work with the building administration so that we can try to figure this out a little better. Is that okay, or?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
I would just like to say one more thing. So if we do not get rid of that time, kids are still going to be, we're going to lose that time whether or not we give it to students, because when we log into the next class, there's still people coming in, the teacher still has to do attendance. So if we don't give us the time, it's probably going to be lost anyway.
So you're saying, Michael, that doesn't happen on a Thursday? It only happens on
I
Monday?
feel like it's less students that happens to with that additional 5 minutes.
I mean, I know some districts didn't even put in a passing period, and they just, you go from, like in the business world, you go from meeting to meeting to meeting. And if you need to go up and take a bathroom break or run to the kitchen, you do that during the class. I mean, that's part of the virtual environment, which is not quite a direct translation to education. I understand that. But I do think 10 minutes is a pretty generous personal break between any obligation on a calendar, but.
I would say the 10 minutes, though, is more like 5 minutes, because by the time you get off of your previous Zoom, and then by the time you have to start logging on to the next Zoom, like, you spend probably half the 10 minutes doing both of those things.
Sure.
So couldn't you log on right when you logged off, then log right back?
Yeah, I mean, on
I
Mondays.
log on and log off all day long,
Yep.
and I don't have 10 minutes.
Well, that's my point.
To your point, and I excuse myself, and I have kids at home, and if you think that they're in front of that computer all day, yeah, they're over here doing this. I mean, there's a moment you can excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, come back, you know?
Yeah. I don't see kids
But
getting.
but I don't want to micromanage it, that I want the administration to, we trust you. I mean, that's,
Okay.
right? But I think we've made our point that we're with the community and the parents here, right? You know.
I think if we could figure it out, Dr. Freitas, you and I would sit and look at a couple of these things, we should be okay.
I mean, what's a passing period in a normal day of school, kids running around the school?
5
We had
minutes.
everybody here in school, what's a passing period?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So everybody can, they figure out how to go to the bathroom in 5 minutes, right? Get a drink of water.
Maybe we do need more time to adjust. Maybe that's why. Like you're saying, maybe just wait those 2 weeks and then still see if it's still a problem.
If we don't lose the 35 minutes of instruction, the board's okay with the move for sure, though, correct?
Yeah, I think we're good.
That's,
Well,
the
yes.
key is the board doesn't want to lose 35 minutes of instruction.
That's
So
absolutely.
if I play with the lunchtime and the little extra time that's in the schedule and 5 minutes off of PLC or something,
Last
as long
year
as we're not
wasn't-
losing 35 minutes, the board's okay.
I think that's very important.
Can I
Okay.
speak? Or last year, wasn't PLC only 40 minutes though? Because we started at 8:40. So couldn't you just take it from that and make PLC 40 minutes? And then that would add some time. And then you can just start lunch right at 12:45 when it's like says it ends instead of giving extra 15-minute break.
Right, we got it. Loud and clear. Message delivered, board. We'll work on
Figure it
it.
out.
As long as we don't lose the 35 minutes, we'll make it.
You were on this committee.
Guys, I
Billy.
appreciate
Come on.
everybody's feedback, and
Should've made this.
I hear that the board is open to the 10 minutes. We just have to revise, where we're getting it from, and we'll do that.
Did Dr. Freitas address all questions that were submitted? I'm trying to look here in my PDF. I think for the most part we did. We talked about attendance, we talked about,
Oh, Dr. Skinkis, there was one, it was regarding student attendance. Has there been, and I'm paraphrasing, a student that has not been engaged at all? Only one student. There's only one student that has not engaged or signed in at all. We've done a home visit, our deans have, our counselors know, our teachers know, and now we're gonna follow up with our local law enforcement officers to do a wellness check. But there's only one student that has not logged in during these past 2 weeks.
okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
All right. We'll go to FOIA request.
Same vendor submitted it twice, and we were able to get the response, or the records he was looking for. We get this annually from Smart Procure, and so that was answered correctly.
Okay, we'll do, we have mission statement on here. What are we talking about?
No work on that, it's just a placeholder. We got to get back to eventually talking about that with you.
Okay. This is where we have visitor statements for anything other than, well, you can talk about the budget now. Does anybody want to talk? You're here. Let's come down. Yeah. Well, so as you're doing that, I will read my statement. Where's my statement? The Board of Education welcomes and encourages the participation of its citizens in the business of school districts. Citizens are welcome to raise questions or make comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and cannot be combined. Please note the Board of Education will not answer questions or engage in dialogue during visitor comments. If a person would like additional time to address the board, such a request should be submitted in
writing 48 hours before the meeting to the superintendent. Okay? State your name and where you live and shoot.
My name is Lisa Swissionis, and I live at 519 Selborne in Riverside. I have a sophomore daughter and a freshman son, and we're just here to support and just hear what's going on, and we're living it. I feel like I'm a prisoner in my house, like sneaking or other shushing me, but overall it's going well, and I feel like it needs time. I was just gonna suggest, also we've got all these vehicles for suggesting, but so for my freshmen in particular, like an announcement time of day, like we don't really have a homeroom, or he doesn't even know how to access his email, which is my fault. Like, he doesn't know how to do that yet, and he's getting information on Schoology and Skyward, and it's all coming together. But it would be kind of nice. I feel like I'm sort of delivering him the daily bark, and I'm like, through the Alexas throughout the house, passing periods and goofy things we're doing, and maybe that's happening during a period of the day, and he just hasn't told me because he's also not a very good communicator. So I feel like, but that would help, like with clubs or what, just kind of make him feel more like of the RB community. Kids used to give the announcements. I don't know if that's possible in any way, shape, or form virtually. I really don't have the solution, but that's just something that I feel is a little bit missing. And we have connection issues, and I'm multiple parents working from home and the kids, and so that's just, I think we're doing everything we can for Wi-Fi connection, but I think the area has a problem, just because everyone in the world is trying to connect, and we're dealing with that, and I feel like the teachers are being patient. Some teachers have reached out and said, I called on you and you didn't say anything, is everything okay? And I'm getting those emails too, so I appreciate that. And then, we're trying to tell them how to follow up and helping them through it, and they're teenagers and they're doing it. The 5 minutes doesn't seem long enough, but just in comparison to 10, maybe 7, I don't know, but but they'll adjust. It's going well, and I also want to thank Dr. Freitas. He is everywhere still, even in virtual world, and he actually witnessed my daughter hit almost a hole-in-one at a golf match. So having a visual presence on that was extra special. And we are here also for the music department and theater, and we're grateful that these things are kind of happening, in a way that they can, marching with no instruments, music from home, by yourself kind of, but in rooms. We're doing everything we can. Excited about the play, excited about clubs happening, just that there are things happening in addition to learning for the children's mental health and being able to get out and be in smaller groups. And that's all. I'm probably at the time limit. And we're excited about getting back to school. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Seeing there's no more comments, we'll move on to additional discussion items. We'll move on to consent agenda. Approval of minutes.
Need a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the consent agenda
61,
items.
yeah.
The Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, takes the following action on the listed consent agenda items. Approves minutes from the meetings held on August 11th and 19th, 2020, open and closed, as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second.
This is Sierra, and then there's a roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Old business, action items, life safety, capital improvements.
The roof project is complete, and the HVAC unit over the gymnastics area has also been installed. Ms. Matana informed me this evening that we are waiting on a few more punch list items from Oak Brook Mechanical before we would process their final payment. But with the Ms. Matana and Mr. Hatchie, our facilities manager, will present probably at the October board meeting just an update on where we are now with life safety and once this project wraps up. But there is nothing new to report. Everything seems to be working okay. Anything else I'm missing on that, Dr. Smetana?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Okay. And to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2021. That is a motion, right?
Yeah, I'm getting
Page
there.
80.
I don't know where that is. I'm like going line by line. I'm not very good at this new board book yet. So, okay. Oh my gosh, it's really long. Okay. Resolution adopting the 2021 budget. Whereas the Board of Education, Township High School District 2, Cook County of Cook, State of Illinois, caused to be prepared in tentative form a budget, and the secretary of this board made the same conveniently available to the public for inspection for at least 30 days prior to final action. I have to make this bigger. I'm sorry, I can't see what I'm reading. I got old eyes. Hang on one second. Sorry, everyone. All right, there we go. Oh my gosh, much better. Whereas a public hearing was held as to such budget on the 8th day of September 2020, notice of said hearing was given at least 30 days prior hereto as required by law, and all other legal requirements have been complied with. Now therefore it is resolved by the Board of Education of said district as follows. Section 1, that the fiscal year of this school district be and the same hereby is fixed and declared to be beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021. Section 2, that the following budget containing an estimate of amounts available in each fund separately and of expenditures from cash be and the same is hereby adopted as the budget of this school district for the said fiscal year.
Second.
Second, Ms. Salas?
It's a roll call.
Yes.
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 If we can address Mr. Smithing PE waivers first, because then I could bring curriculum proposals, class rank, and graduation requirements all together.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Yep, let's do it.
In regards to PE waivers, I need to just find the page here. Give me 1 second. Should be right after curriculum proposals.
The new board book is really hard to follow.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know.
It's not just you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Same here.
In regards to PE waivers, the board had discussed about amending board policy, I believe it's 6:310, which discusses the PE waivers. And so we did discuss it as a policy advisory council. We did review what the school code language exactly is and what, and I had our legal counsel also review that. And I think at this point in time, I think it's in the best interest of the board to leave the policy in regards to PE waivers as is. And that's where students will be exempt from PE and put into a study hall for the length of their season. As soon as their season concludes, they will then return to a PE class. But the interpretation of school code is a little gray, and you know, as discussing it with the policy council and then discussing it with legal counsel, I think we're in our best situation to leave the PE waiver policy currently as is and continue to monitor that and see if there's something we can do in the future. And I didn't receive any questions on it. It has been on a part of the packet for since the last meeting, but we didn't get to it because of the discussions with remote learning and some of those things. And I did not receive any discussions or questions related to that today or over the weekend. So I think at this point we should leave, my recommendation would be to leave PE waivers as is for now. Is the board okay with that? Is there any, I don't know, Mr. Smithing, if you just want to take a straw poll, there's no formal action.
I don't, is there any objections? I mean, I think we made our point, we investigated it, and that's what we wanted to do. It just didn't seem to make sense, but not all school code makes sense, right?
True.
So, I got it. We understand it.
Okay, so if Ms. Augustine, Ms. Lindquist want to join Dr. Freitas, we can now address, probably in order, Kylie, the curriculum proposals, because that's the easiest, then class rank, which is more Ms. Augustine and Dr. Freitas, and then we could save the third discussion, which is graduation requirements.
So, Dr. Skinkis, the curriculum proposals seem to be the lightest, and there's a vote. Is there a vote on that? Official vote?
Is today the first read of these?
Second.
The first time we're discussing them, correct?
At the board, this is the first time we're discussing it.
Because I was going to say, we could probably get that.
That's why I tell them to do that first. We can get that off the chart. So Kylie, if you just want to quickly go through the curriculum proposals.
Dr. Freitas wanted to highlight the first thing on my report, so I'll let him go ahead and then I'll pick up.
I did. So we're proposing a new course for the 2021, 2022 curriculum guide. Everyone here today has a computer. Everybody here today has a smartphone or some sort of phone. Computer science has become part of our life, has become an extension of our character and our personality to some degree. So I'm really proud to propose AP Computer Science Discoveries. Currently, we have 2 year-long courses, AP Computer Science Principles and AP Computer Science A. We don't have that semester course, that introductory course that could spark that curiosity. You know, that student maybe, I want to learn about computers, I want to learn about cybersecurity programming, the benefits and the pitfalls, but, you know, AP may seem a little too far away. What can I do now? What can I do in half a semester that could get me interested and prepared for ultimate success in AP Computer Science A or AP Computer Science Principle? And that's where Computer Science Discoveries comes in. It'll be a half an elective credit. Students need to have taken Algebra 1 previously because they need to know math to support this. This is a 1 semester course, elective, regular, non-AP class, open to any sophomore, junior, or senior. Freshmen are not required to take the reading, and at least one Algebra 1 could qualify for this class. So guys, I really hope that we do move forward with Computer Science Discovery, because it'll be a benefit and it'll be added value to RB. Kylie, I know there's a lot of details. I don't know if I'm missing anything out on the proposed new course, but if there's anything that I left out, please add.
Nope, that covers it.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, next one, change.
So then the proposed changes in my report are, the first would be changing our current Western Civilizations course at the freshman level to a world history course. Western Civ is the freshman social studies requirement, and for years it has focused obviously on Western civilizations, and we have had a unique opportunity through Aaron Cunningham and the history department to work with Big History, which is out of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to pilot new curriculum in world history. A lot of schools are changing to a world history curriculum, sometimes at the sophomore level, sometimes at the freshman where it hits. It's more culturally relevant for our students. It gives our students an opportunity to explore more of the world than what they have already learned in, frankly, most of their schooling up until this point. And so the pilot has gone so successfully that we want to move forward with adopting world history as that freshman level class. I have had the opportunity to watch students learn in the Big History pilot last year when we were in person learning. And I can tell you that the infusion of literacy and primary sources and the exploration of history that they're doing in that class with the students
is really remarkable, and it gives students a well-rounded experience that Western civilization simply doesn't offer. So we are asking that we are able to make that change. There was one question about the contributions of the LGBTQ community, and I'm assuming that's in reference to the inclusive curriculum law, which is HB 246. When you read the inclusive curriculum law, it does mention that students, by the time they're finished with 8th grade, should have some exposure to the contributions, the significant contributions of the LGBTQ community, both in their state and in the United States history, and it actually applies to a textbook grant, saying that schools K through 8 that are gonna get textbooks have to purchase them through the grant with a highlighting of the members of the community who have had significant contributions. So this course does not apply to that. This is a world history course, so the places where you would see our teachers, even though it's not necessarily required at the high school level, that this does happen, where you would see our teachers highlighting the contributions of significant members of the LGBTQ community in the United States would be in that United States history class that we have at the junior level. Other changes that are included in your packet would be a change in English offerings at the senior level. We currently have AP at the senior level, of course, in English, but we also have an honors Shakespeare Seminar course. Now, when I was in high school, I would have loved to take a year-long Shakespeare course, but that's why I ended up an English nerd and became an English teacher. The typical high school student is not jazzed about learning Shakespeare for an entire year. The typical adult learner would not be jazzed about that either. I can see Ramona shaking her head. And this has traditionally been the only path that a senior student could get an honors offering at the senior level if they didn't go into AP. And so we felt as though we were missing some of our tweener students that need an honors level offering, maybe aren't ready for the AP. And since they didn't want to take honors Shakespeare, they were dropping down to a class that maybe didn't necessarily fit their goals after they were leaving RB. So we're looking to make honors Shakespeare Seminar not the only honors offering at the senior level. We're looking to make it an elective. If a student really wants to learn about Shakespeare, great, we can do that in a semester. We can have a very concentrated study on that. But it doesn't have to be their senior level honors option only. So that is why on the next page, we're proposing to make the world literature, which has traditionally been sort of the regular level senior option, the honors option. It's a curriculum that opens itself to more rigorous study if it bears that honors weight with it. And that would then become the honors offering at the senior level. So students who weren't opting into AP English for their senior year would go into honors world literature, have a more survey type course of a wide variety of literature, multicultural literature, not studying for an entire year one dead white guy that's, may or may not have been intended to, may not actually, have been intended to sit in a classroom and read when his play scripts were written. So at the honors level, we feel like this is a much more beneficial track for our students, and we feel like it more is going to prepare our students who maybe, again, aren't going up to the AP route, but who are entering a four-year college, a competitive four-year college, and it's really going to make them a more diversified student. So those would be the changes that we're proposing in addition to what Dr. Freitas highlighted.
Callie, I sent the questions to you and Dr. Freitas. I think you addressed all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board on curriculum changes?
Can I speak, please? Dr. Freitas, I think you should make the computer science course available for freshmen, because then if they want to, they can go straight into AP sophomore year. I think freshman year is a good place where you'll have room for encore classes. Like, I took encore classes freshman year, and then all the other years I did AP classes instead, but freshman year you're not even allowed to take any AP. So I think if you're gonna be introduced to computer science, freshman year is the best year to do it. And the math that you do in computer science really isn't that difficult.
I just reiterate, so freshmen who are not required to take reading and are in at least an Algebra 1 could also qualify for this class.
Oh, okay.
So there's an opportunity. Okay.
I would also like to say, so I'm in honors Shakespeare right now. I would have rather had that other option that Ms. Lindquist is talking about. It's interesting. Mr. Fuller is going to teach us, because there's a lot of words in there that I don't understand right now, but We'll learn it. I'll get through it.
Yes.
However, I do think that having that option is good. And when Mr. Fuller asked, like most students would have thought of it as an elective, or they did it because they didn't want to take the AP class.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you need help, Michael, come see me. We can Zoom. I'll work through Shakespeare with you anytime.
Okay.
I love it. I know, I'm a nerd.
So, Board of Education, you could have another week to choose. These were on, curriculum proposals were in last month's packet. I'm sure you had time to review those. We can leave this on and either vote on it at the September COW meeting, or if there's no additional questions, this will be one thing that we can get off of our agenda and take action tonight. What is the pleasure of the board?
Yeah, do we have any objections to voting on it this week? I don't see any objections, so yeah. Do we have a motion for it?
Sure. The Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, approves the curriculum guide changes as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
I believe you can do an all in favor on this.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Jacobs.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
Okay, thank you, Kylie. Thank you, Dr. Freitas, on that.
And we'll go down to class rank.
Class rank.
All right. Good evening again, board members. One thing that we pride ourselves at RB when we hire, when we do program, is adding value. Does this make us better? Does this make us more competitive? Does this give us more opportunities to shine? And I believe moving from class rank to the Latin honor recognition system would add value to RB. So let me start why. Why eliminate class rank? Why move beyond it, right? Class rank encourages unhealthy competition among peers and disregards working towards a standard or fostering collaboration. We preach collaborative skills, students working together. But what often the class rank does is pits people against one another. And you need collaborative skills to be successful not only here in work in college and beyond. Historically, class rank perpetuates the disenfranchisement of black and brown students. In order for black and brown students to be successful, we need to know the mark, we need to know the goal, we need to know the standard, and black and brown students will rise if there's a clear, defined standard. By removing class rank from the equation, universities must look more holistically at the student's profile. What activities do they do? What sports do they do? How about their essay, their level of interest, their interviews? So you get to look at students beyond just a number. And I know at RB we pride ourselves, or the challenges, better phrase, we've done well with the top, we've done well supporting the developmental learning, but how do we move that middle group? We move that middle group by creating a standard that recognizes academic achievement. If we move that middle group, we move up in rank as a school. Nationally, the use of class rank has been used less and less as an indicator for college acceptance, falling behind GPA, rigorous coursework, the student essay, and even student interest, according to the National Association of College Admission Counselors. Guys, according to the experts, it's just not that important anymore. I just don't know what to say. I read from the experts. Guys, if we look at my if we could look at my slides, please. I'm sorry, I'm on slide number 3. This is a graphic taken from the National Association of College Admission Counselors. Yep. Going a little more. We can go to slide. One more. Beautiful. So guys, in the early 90s, okay, class rank was second to test scores. We were there, RB. We did it. It was important. It mattered to us. But guys, over the years, from 93 to 2011, it has fallen to dead last of importance. About 18% of national counselors believe it's important. And if you look at the next slide, which is a little more current from 2016, only about, and it's hard to read, excuse me, only about 8 to 9% of counselors believe that class rank is important. Guys, class rank is outdated, and I believe there's a better measure that can push all of our students to succeed academically. Let's see what the national principals are saying. This is from the National Association of Secondary School Principals, right? Guys like me, guys like Dr. Skinkis know that always promote fair policy for student success. Schools should hold high expectations for all students and should promote academic excellence for each and every student, not for a select few. Class rank top 10 does the select few. Students should assume a well-rounded, rigorous, and challenging course of study that consists of core academic courses as well as a variety of elective courses. We should encourage students to do what they want, but sometimes just to get that extra GPA point, to get that extra number, maybe a student takes that AP and doesn't want to take something of interest to them that may not be weighted. Schools should encourage and recognize academic excellence in the spirit of cooperation, not intense competition that sets one student and gets another. Weighted grades should not be used to sort students and determine who receives recognition. Guys, what the experts are saying is, let's create a standard so all the students could be successful, so you can move the entire school forward. And so every student has a clear mark of academic achievement, for academic achievement. So why adopt the Latin honor system? Why adopt it? It's a recognizable distinction of academic excellence among college admission officers. Colleges know what summa cum laude is, magna cum laude, cum laude. They recognize that name. It's an opportunity to recognize more students of more diverse backgrounds for their academic achievement. Over the last 5 years, we've had zero African Americans be in the top 10, and only 7 Latinos over the last 5 years, over the 50 students. It creates a standard, and this is what excites me. It creates a standard that's visible and achievable by all students. So if you want to earn a designation, a recognition, if you want to be cum laude, magna cum laude, summa cum laude, you know what metric you need to achieve. GPA and grades are the biggest predictor of college success for high school students. How could you earn a Latin honor recognition? Students can earn a Latin honor recognition designation by achieving the following grade point averages. Summa cum laude with highest honors would be a 4.0 and above. Magna cum laude with high honors would be 3.5 to 3.99. And cum laude with honors would be a 3.0 to 3.49. And yes, guys, a 3.0 is a good GPA. According to the expert, you can get into a good public school. If you have higher marks, please aim high. Aim as high as you can. Break the GPA scale. Okay, that's what I recommend. But just so you know, for those students that are catching up, that need extra help, that have improved, that have grown, maybe that 3.0, is really high achievement for them, and they should be recognized for that. And colleges recognize that, and many of them do accept students with that GPA, which is considered a good GPA, according to the experts. And guys, most importantly, what really excites me about this is, again, going back to that middle group, I believe this is going to make that difference, be that difference maker for our middle group to really achieve and to improve and to aim for something so we can improve as a school. Students would have the Latin honor recognition designation written on their diploma, similar to college degrees and official transcripts. In addition, students would receive a medal complementary to their achievements. Summa cum laude would be gold, magna cum laude would be silver, and cum laude would be bronze, similar to the top 3 place finishers at the World Olympic Games. Guys, our neighbors did it years ago in my research. Hinsdale Central, LT, Fenwick, OPRF, Morton. Okay? Guys, we're one of the last few in the neighborhood that still keeps class rank. Guys, I believe the Latin honor system sets a standard of high achievement, gives all students a target to achieve, recognizes more than just a few, but more importantly, adds value to our school and really could move that middle group up to achieve academically. So I really hope that the board does adopt the Latin honor system. And in touching base with my students here, I know seniors, juniors, and sophomores, have been working towards the top 10. So this proposal would impact the freshman class, the class of 2024. And that's my class rank presentation.
Ms. Augustine, you presented on this as well with Mr. Franco. It seems like an eternity ago. I think it was at the July board meeting, correct?
Does seem like a long time ago.
Dr. Freitas obviously is proposing what we would replace class rank with. Is there anything else that's missing from the presentation or any other reminders that the board would need to hear?
The only thing I would add is if we are going to make this change, I think now is the ideal time to do it, since we were unable to use rank last semester with the students, remote learning and not having to, based on the state guidelines, we were not do no harm to kids. So the class rank will never be correct moving forward with our current students. But we can. I know for our current seniors, we've made notations on their transcripts we're getting ready to send to colleges, letting them know that the rank was not calculated for the second semester of their junior year. But Dr. Freitas is saying that we would start with our current freshmen.
So it would start with current freshmen, so this graduating class, next year's current juniors and current sophomores. So we'd have it for 3 more years, correct?
Correct.
And it's been a practice of the board going back, I know since my arrival, and I think even prior to my arrival, whenever you make like a large cumulative change, unless it's something that immediately needs to be done because of the state or because of a safety or a policy issue, that we try to bring it in with a new class. The intent of bringing Beth in July and then having this on for August, again, we got lost in our discussions with the scheduling of remote learning versus hybrid and all those things that panned out. But this was intended to begin, or to be voted on in August before the first day of school. So I think the board has heard a couple of these presentations now. We've heard a citizen comment or two. I think if after tonight's discussion, we should probably really consider taking action and making a decision on this, whether it's for or against. But we should probably want to make this decision sooner rather than later before we get too deep into their freshman year.
The last time we discussed this Latin system is not new. Many this school used to publish the different levels of honor roll in the newspaper. We just didn't call them by this name. You used to see the kids' names that were 4.0, the ones that were 3.0. It was 2 levels. We used to publish those names, so this is not new. I asked in August, how are we going to recognize the top achievers? I'm not satisfied. I don't think replacing this is at all replacing those who have excelled, have worked hard for 4 years, have made it to the top. We have always identified the top 10. They have a GPA, their rank can be calculated. It's a mathematical formula. I've asked, how are we going to recognize the excellent, the top? I'd like to know what Fenwick does with their top. I'm sure they recognize more than just, the honor rolls are published in every school district. So I don't think this is at all. We're so excited to see where we fall as a school, our rank, which has fallen in the last several years. We've gone from the top, 10 down to like 50th. That's not going to make, that's pretty sad. We'd love to see us ranked high in sports and sports competitions, but now all of a sudden we want to just get rid of the academic. We want to just kind of minimize those students who work so hard for that excellent. That's a tradition here. We recognize the top 10 students. We're not just picking out one. I am absolutely uncomfortable going that, and I still never got an answer from August. How are they recognizing their top students?
When you're saying how are they recognizing top students, if we got rid of class rank, how would we recognize our top students?
What's Fenwick doing? They're just,
Fenwick dropped class rank.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable dropping class rank just to replace it with reporting on the honor roll. We've reported on the honor roll in the past.
I think I think if I'm correct, Dr. Freitas, the system you're recognizing is not the honor roll. This would be someone that maintained that cumulative GPA for all 4 years, not
Correct.
just for that semester, correct?
Correct.
So someone that's graduating magna cum laude or summa cum laude, they've kept 3.5 to 4.0 for 4 years.
Sure, yep.
So that's
still have
not
honor
even equitable, because a student who is in a 3.0 to 3.5 is encouraged and will strive to get higher. So if they, in the junior or senior year, bump up to the next level, you're saying you're not going to recognize them for
No,
that?
I'm saying it's a cumulative of their 4 years, though, their cumulative GPA, just like we use their cumulative GPA for class rank, correct, Beth?
Correct.
This would be their cumulative GPA of their 4 years of work, where they finished.
Correct.
Is what we would recognize at graduation.
It's really 7 semesters of work, because we would have to calculate it prior to graduation, so it would be after the first semester of senior year.
Okay.
So that's the same data that's used to calculate class rank?
Correct.
Correct, yes.
But instead of recognizing 10 kids, we would be recognizing 200-300 kids. maybe.
Well, I
guess my-
think
my question is-
we used to publish this in the paper.
No, but that's honor roll, that's different, right? Honor roll is not the same as
It's the
this.
same thing. We called it honor roll then, but this is the list of names of kids who fall in that bracket based on their GPA. That used to be published in the graduation
Don't we still
program
put it in the
and
paper?
newspaper.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
We
still in the
still do,
paper.
but it's just by semester.
yeah, it's just,
Right.
yeah.
Right, so it's not cumulative.
We
in
put the
paper.
honor roll each
It's
semester in the paper.
So, go back to this, where you said the top 10, no blacks have been in the top 10?
Correct.
Have there been any special
7?
education students in the top 10 ever?
I'd have to look into that, Gina.
I'm going to guess no.
I would let him look into that. I don't think we would guess.
And the other thing about the top 10 is that we are also choosing the top 10, again, after the 7th semester. So that really could be changes in what happens during that 2nd semester of senior year. The top 10 could change, but we don't know that. We have to go off of the 7th semester, because, grades are calculated after the fact.
So quick question, you had said 200 or 300 would fall into this bucket. Did you take the class of 2020, or maybe a more pure class would be 2019s, didn't have that statistical anomaly? And how many people would be in that highest GPA group?
And when I ran the numbers the first time, it looks like it'd be about between 15 to 20% in each group of the graduating class. So approximately 60% of students would receive a designation, and the highest designation would go to about 15 to 20% of our highest achievers.
Say, we'll choose a number of 400 graduates, right? So we're talking anywhere from 50 to 55 to 80, roughly like
Yep,
that.
per level, yes.
60 to 80.
So we went through this the other day, so if a kid had a 4.5, that puts him at a rank of about where?
He would be summa cum laude.
No, where would, if we stayed with the ranking system?
I wouldn't know, because it kind of changes every year, the top 10 GPA. I mean, we don't
Not
know.
in the
It's
top
usually,
10.
I mean, the
It's a
kids at the
difference maker
top,
by
a tenth of a percentage, yeah. I mean.
So you could have a 4 in theory, you could have a 4.42 and miss out on the top 10. It just depends on what your peers
The kids
are
are
also
competing
doing. So
against
that's one of the main arguments, right?
It's a moving
Anything that you
target.
read in education these days talks about the fact that causing students to compete with each other does not allow them to exercise their truest potential. And that's what class rank is. That's the game that some of the students play, where I'm gonna take this class pass fail so that it doesn't impact my GPA, or I'm gonna take an AP class and 3 weeks in, I realize that it's not gonna be an easy A and I'm gonna drop because I'm gonna go into another class. There's
part of the
there's a
game.
certain level of finesse that goes into getting to the top
I
10
remember
for
there
some
was
students.
part of the game where if you were in band, you didn't have to take PE, so you could take an AP course, but if you were in soccer, you had to
Correct.
take PE, and then you got out of the top 10.
Correct.
Because your GPA, you couldn't catch up to the 5.0.
Those kids had like an extra class.
Right.
That's why we changed the policy.
But our students continually to do this. To get in a prestigious engineering class, they vie for grades. To get into medical school, they have to have a high GPA and they have to have a high percentage on their MCAT and different exams. Our students for some of the elite programs or some of the colleges for years, we've had students who wanted to go to Champaign and couldn't because they didn't have the high enough scores. Our students take their, it used to be ACT, now they'll probably take their SAT multiple times. Why? Because they want to get that highest
So
score.
are you suggesting that a child who wants to make a 5.0 won't make a 5.0 because it doesn't matter to make a 5.0?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that that is part of our fabric to get into some of the prestigious engineering,
Right.
medical schools.
That's part
all
if you
of
want to
that
go to
be-
Yale, you better make a
be at the
5.0, right?
top. Why would we not?
Well,
want
Yale
to
isn't going to
recognize
ask you
that?
what your rank was. in
They
high
don't
school.
care.
Yale doesn't care what your
Because
rank was. They want you to have a 35
because
on your
everybody makes a
ACT.
5.0. and
They don't care what your rank
Guys,
is.
I did want to add, so a question that I receive often, you guys know me, I'm everywhere, and talking to parents, Dr. Fritz, how's this going to affect my son or daughter's admissions chances, And I kind of typed this as, I said, none. Many universities popular with our students, such as University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, my alma mater, ILL, Illinois State University, Northern Illinois University, as well as highly selected schools, Harvard, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, do not require a class rank for admissions. The majority of college admission officials stated that they recalculate the GPAs, consider the rigor of course taken, time spent in extracurricular activities, letter recommendation, essays, etc. Again,
So the
guys,
top tier
class rank
schools
is
don't
just not that important anymore
Right.
when it comes to the college admissions process.
We can take a middle kid and make him a little bit better, that's a win.
Sure.
We can take a minority student who might not be engaged and make him engaged, that's a big win.
If we're sending,
So is it a win if we take the top 10 and tell them it's just not important enough to recognize?
Well, it's not important to the schools they're going to anyway, I don't think. I mean, these top 10 are going to the top tier schools in the nation.
I mean,
Probably 3 of them are going to go Ivy League anyway, so.
we had
right?
several Latino students in our top 10. We've had students of color in our top 10.
It says here 7.
We've
I
had
think-
7, yes,
Yeah.
That's not
over the
7.
last 5 classes,
Right.
top 10.
So-
So we've had a few,
Yes.
we've had a few.
Yeah, out
I
of
think
50.
it's because our African-American population is probably our smallest.
Yes, that's correct, Ms.
Right.
Yep, that's correct.
So just based on statistics, I wouldn't say that the school is systematically doing anything to cause that to be.
And that's not what I'm suggesting either.
But to not recognize your top 10
In
so
our-
that they can take that accolade with them. You have the National Honor Society, you have those who have taken so many AP courses, you have that whole ceremony of accolades and honors. I think to lose the top 10 is a great loss and a loss of tradition in this school. I think you could add this, you certainly could add this designation, but I don't think we should lose our top 10.
Is there any other discussion?
Beth, you had, there was more schools listed on the list you provided this summer, correct?
Correct, there were about close to 50 schools.
I just put our neighbors.
Suburban high schools, right?
Yes.
Some of the top performing schools that in the past the boards wanted to compare themselves to, Stevenson and New Trier and those places, are they still doing class rank or?
And pulling it up.
Just a quick question while you're looking that up too. So we know that this year standardized tests are perhaps somewhat in flux. Do we think, I think the graph you showed was very powerful, talking about how class rank has really become the lowest consideration.
Yes.
And standardized tests are the top consideration. From your literature, do you think that's moving at all, or is this a kind of a COVID anomaly?
I think some schools, I mean, I don't Would you say that the standardized test is the number one consideration anymore?
I think a holistic approach is how colleges are looking at.
Some schools aren't even looking at
Test scores.
anymore.
More and more schools are going test optional, and I think that will continue to grow. We just had our senior countdown to college night, and Julie Nelson from Xavier was sharing those very points that more schools would be going test optional because students can't get a test. I mean, we're hopeful that our seniors are going to be able to sit for the test in October 14th. We're still working that out, what that's going to look like, because so many of our seniors haven't had a test yet.
I just talked to one of our teachers who has a senior right now. Her son was scheduled to, of course, take the SAT with us in April, and then they signed up for outside. It got canceled for May, for June, for July, for August. Their fingers crossed that he's going to be able to take it September 19th, but they're canceling them left and right.
Yeah, as a parent of a senior, I have yet to see a school that's taking ACT or SAT for admissions. They're just not. And many of them were test optional to begin with. So
Yeah, and that's pre-COVID,
who's to
too.
say
That's
if they're
not
gonna-
just a COVID
Yeah,
symptom.
who's to say if they'll go
Absolutely.
back
No,
or
but I think
not?
that's important, and what I wanted to hear you say, and you did, was that it is the package, right?
Yes.
It's not a lone factor anymore for any reason. And I think.
And one of the main factors is that rigorous coursework.
Yes, that is still the number one factor when considering
So if we
admissions.
can do something for our kids that encourages them to stick with their rigorous coursework.
Absolutely.
And not drop out of it just because they're fighting for a number that they don't understand isn't the X factor, isn't the thing that's pushing them over the top. That's where we're servicing our students better, because the experience of being in, I'll use an example that I could never handle, the experience of being in AP Calc BC is valuable to, right? Is valuable to a student whether they get an A or whether they get a C, because it's the experience, it's the rigor, it's the college-like assignments, it's the community that's created out of AP and the opportunities that you get. And so if that student says, oh my gosh, I can't stay in this class because it's going to mess with my GPA, that student is now missing out on something.
I would like to say, so with ACT, I've had 3 of my tests canceled. The last time I've been able to take it was December. So now I'm just on standby to see if I can even take it this weekend. Just saying how tests, I don't know, and the only schools that I've seen that are requiring it are like specific programs, like a business school is requiring it. But other than that, they're not asking for any. And yeah, I've had the same experience with GPA-wise. If it was changing my GPA, I would lean more towards a class that would raise it. So I've had that happen to me too. But without this class rank, I think, honestly, I wouldn't be as leaning towards a harder class. A class that I wanted to take rather than not take.
So I'll just.
Can I speak?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So a few of my friends were going to come speak tonight about class rank, all of which are in the top 10. But then I told them they didn't have to come. So I'm going to speak on their behalf. So you guys say that we're playing games. I'm in the top 10, and I am also speaking for my friends. So you're saying we're playing games to get our GPA high, but if you look at the top 10 and the students taking AP Calc BC, most of us are. And I'm not taking statistics. I took AP Chem last year, which was the hardest class I've ever taken. And the fact that, me and all my peers who are ranked so highly, I've taken 13 classes. I know our number one person has taken 14 AP classes. I've taken 9 AP credits. And I can graduate with the same honors as someone who took no honors or AP classes, but got all A's in them, and that just is not right. So,
Wouldn't they, Dr. Freitas, don't they, to get that summa cum laude, you would have to take AP because it's higher than 4.0, correct?
So it's, how I have it written right here is 4.0 and above.
Right, okay.
4.0, how I have it written.
you can get a 4.0 if you get all A's in regular level
Well, you
classes.
could also be taking all honors and get above that 4.0. So you don't need to only take APs.
The people who are challenging themselves in the most AP, that's college coursework, they should be recognized with special honors.
I
So
would argue that, that argument is, I think is pretty reasonable. If somebody is that high achieving, what I do think is a fundamental flaw in the class rank system is that it's relative. 10 kids out of a random cohort. How does that make any sense? If we're trying to set high standards for everyone. So I just, I think this is a good discussion, and I think that's a reasonable, why not? Why wouldn't you celebrate somebody who's really that high achieving? But class rank is flawed, as far as I'm concerned. So
That's kind of what the studies have shown. Because Lily, you may have someone in your class that's taken a lot of those same classes with you, and maybe is sitting at number 11 or 12, and they get no recognition, and they got a 4.4 or a 4.3.
Or they were 9, and then somebody moved in and, right, or 10 and knocked them right out. They've been holding that line for three
becomes
years.
arbitrary.
And then
Well, then
knocked
we
them
should
off the
just make
pedestal.
some other form of recognizing the top achieving students, because the fact that I could be on the same level as someone who has taken no honors or AP, when I've taken, how many credits do you need to graduate? Like 22. I've taken about that in just honors and AP credits, not including any of my regular level classes. So
But
there
I think
just
some
needs
of
to
the
be that
concern
extra
too
level.
is there someone that's taken all of these AP courses and, maybe they had a hidden talent for pottery or choir and they never found a way to get that into their schedule, right? Because it was never going to be an AP course to get them there. And
There's
so I think
AP Studio Art. You can do that sophomore year out.
No, I know, but I think you have to be really on, and obviously you've been really on top of your game from day one to get that schedule together. Not everyone, it kind of gets to that point before freshman year, and so you get cut out of that top 10, and I think it forces certain decision-making that I'm just not comfortable with in terms of recognizing the top 10. Now, I think to your point about, people who are high achievers, this I think was Laura's point to some extent too, how else do you recognize people who do well? NHS still exists, correct? I think I'd like to hear what else is out there to recognize those incredibly top performers. Maybe it is people who've taken a certain number of AP courses, putting yourself out there and taking an AP course each year that you're able to is a significant undertaking.
Yeah, we do several recognitions like that at our senior awards ceremony. So we recognize students who not only have taken a certain number of AP courses, but who have taken and scored a certain level. So they've averaged a 3 or higher, and then we winnow it down a little bit. They've averaged a 4 or higher. So we take like the big pool. Actually, most of our senior awards is about AP students, if I'm being honest. We have a lot of recognition for AP. And then we also, of course, recognize the things like Illinois State Scholars, National Merit Finalists, so that we have in that senior awards night students who are getting awards for each of those accomplishments along the way.
Would it be unreasonable to ask some of, the group of students in the top 10 to kind of investigate that and say, what would be a reasonable recognition? I worked in medical education for a long time, and to get in medical school, you have to be the top 0.5. And for those students, that's huge, and you need to recognize that for students that have made it to the top 10, that's 4 grueling years and a lot of sacrifice.
I think
This does not at all come close to recognizing that, and we recognize excellence in our society all the time. Why wouldn't we recognize it here? I think we need something more to recognize the top.
I think we got to remember a couple things that, we're talking about the top 10. We're not looking to change this for another 3 years. It's first starting with this freshman class. So it's not like we're pulling the rug out on them by their start. We're doing it in the second week of their high school career. But I do think, that we have to be cognizant of their students out there. When you say 4 grueling years, there may be a student with a 504 or an IEP who went above and beyond to just achieve a 4.0, and for them that's a monumental accomplishment, and nothing gets said about that because they're not in the top 10. So I think, and they might end up getting into that Ivy League school because of their extracurriculars or because of the story they can tell of what they accomplished. and they get zero recognition. So I think we have to create some type of balance here. There has to be a reason we're one of the last schools doing it, not one
Yeah,
of the
and
first.
I'll just add, so Barrington, Bennett, Deerfield, Fenwick, Evanston, Highland Park, IMSA, Lake Forest, the Naperville schools, New Trier, Stevenson, Schaumburg, Wheaton North have all eliminated class rank. And that's, I have, I won't read them all to you.
Right, but what
there's-
I'm saying is, we're not one of the first ones to this dance, we're one of the last ones.
Correct.
So there's something we're missing, or obviously we're not paying enough attention to the literature out there that says that we need to do something different.
But how do they recognize their top? What are they doing?
Well, I think we could address this in two ways. I think we can discuss tonight or take a vote tonight about, or poll tonight, if Westwood, it's been on since July.
No, I think we need to vote on it.
But we can vote on the elimination of class rank, and then if we want to gather more information of how they're doing recognition, we can bring something back and say whether we need to tweak something with our Latin honor system, or whether we need to look at some other type of
You could look at a
award.
percentage. You could look at the top 2% rather than the top 10.
Yeah, well, I
Something like that.
would even say the top 10 or the top 5%.
Well, if you take the top 2%, you're gonna have to rank them. And you're gonna be using the class.
They won't necessarily know who's number 1 or number 2.
Well, why can't you do that now when you take the top 10? Because nobody, in the top 10, do you actually know your number?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
on our
So,
transcript.
do you have to, if you just take the top 10, if you're gonna take the top 2%, that's the top 20. So are they gonna know their number?
No. No, they would just be told you're in the top 2% of your class.
So why aren't, you could do the same thing?
Well, I'm trying to come up with something that,
Right.
that you would be
So by
agreeable.
taking the top 10, what we're doing,
I guess what I struggle with the top 10 is that it's truly not the top 10 necessarily, because it's 7th semester. It's not at the end of the year. So a student could be, you're in the top 10, and then second semester, right, not do much. And I've seen it happen. But yet they're recognized as being one of the top 10 students at graduation, when truly they're not, when it's all said and done and the transcripts and the grades shake out. So I guess that's where I struggle a little bit.
that's horrible.
So,
Oh, I was gonna say, one thing I think that might be a good compromise from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the problem is not necessarily the Latin system, but maybe looking at the cutoffs and maybe raising that 4.0, so that we're not ranking kids and it's not, it's not a moving target, but there is a more rigorous designation, so that not everybody, you have to take a couple honors classes plus AP classes and do well, and so that maybe that 4.0 is raised, and maybe that, the cut GPAs are different, because I think that would address maybe some of the concerns, was if you're recognizing 60% of the graduating class, then you're also in some ways disenfranchising, the minority of students who are sitting there and not getting the recognition, and the recognition is something that is supposed to be, difficult and prestigious, and so maybe playing with the cutoffs would address everyone's concerns. It's just one thing that I'm hearing from the feedback from the students as well as the board.
This is already, these cutoffs are they're traditional, and to belong into this group, translate, it's a common language. I just think if you're gonna eliminate the top 10 based on their class rank, there needs to be a replacement for that. This can be added, that'd be great. I have no problem adding that. But to eliminate the recognition of our excellent students.
So I think we need to take a vote on the class rank. It's a separate issue, and then we can come back, and we have 3 years to figure out how to, recognize the top, and then whether that's 2%, 5%, or 10%. we can talk about that. I
So
think
are you
that's a
suggesting that we do
different-
not read the resolution as it is written
Nope,
in the?
nope,
board?
I'm suggesting we read the resolution as it is, and we get rid of class rank, and then we make a new business of how to recognize
Okay, but
your
the-
top earners if that's what we want to do, but
You
that
can
would be a
amend the
different.
resolution.
The resolution reads right now, and adopt Latin honor system.
I
Yeah,
think you-
well, we would adopt the Latin honor system. In my opinion, I think we need to adopt the class rank and the Latin
Okay.
honor
All
system.
right, then I'll read the
Yeah,
resolution
Mona-
as it
Something separate,
stands
we can
and
do
let
something
you
separate.
all vote as your conscience lets you.
May I speak really quick? Okay, I honestly think that the Latin honor system is good. Like, I do support getting more kids recognized, but again, we do need to recognize the top. So but I think that if you are gonna decide how to recognize the top, you should make that decision sooner rather than later, because the freshmen deserve to know how they're gonna be honored when they graduate.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Yeah.
something someone could put on the,
Well, and I also think some of the items that you highlighted, if we can get that maybe as the starting point. I mean, you're talking about the AP recognitions, the National Honor Society, those are existing honors that exist, and I'm not sure I was fully aware of all of them. That might be a good starting point of how those get, I don't want to say tweaked, but maybe elevated
But
in a
those
way.
are done at a senior recognition night, and this year it was virtual, but that's where the parents come. It was in the alumni auditorium. It's not all the relatives or anything. It's not the community. It's kind of a closed group. So all those accolades are not in the program on graduation.
So that can be, I think, be part of our discussion.
Yep.
Maybe NHS is in the program. I mean, I think there's ways to look at what, my point is, we have some existing recognitions that maybe we need to publicize differently or more broadly that may be addressing that same cadre of individuals, I think.
Okay, I'm going to read the resolution.
Mona,
Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, hereby approves the elimination of class rank and the adoption of the Latin honor system beginning with the class of 2024 as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second?
Mrs. Sierra, let's do a roll call on this.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
No.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put on the agenda under new business, we'll work on identifying a plan for recognition. Once this is eliminated, we can start discussing that ASAP. Got that, Dr. Freitas? Can you work on that with your team, please?
Yeah.
Graduation requirements?
So this will be the first time we'll discuss this, so I think we want to do this in chunks, Ms. Lindquist and Dr. Freitas. But the Curriculum and Instruction Advisory Council has met 2 or 3 times since last spring to discuss graduation requirements. And our current graduation requirements are set at 22, but we do have some specific classes that are unique to Riverside Brookfield High School. And historically, over the last 8 to 10 years, we've worked to try to remove some of those classes that are unique just to RB, so that students, we don't want to necessarily lower graduation requirements, but we want to provide students the opportunities to have more choice. I think Ms. Zalis brought up the example of the kid who's pursuing the top 10, but also may have a passion for, music or rock band or something like that. They might not be able to take it because it might impact their rank. And so that's kind of the same approach we took with the graduation requirements, is we were discussing how can we create more opportunities for students to have choice in the classes they're choosing to take, instead of having some of these specific courses. And so that's kind of how this is geared tonight, our presentation, and I'll let the Assistant Principal of Curriculum Instruction start off by covering that proposal.
You did a pretty good job. No, not to be dangerous. You pretty much covered it.
Travis says pass.
Well, I think you can get into the specific courses.
We work together.
We looked at specifically in the graduation requirements previously the cultural and applied studies section, where there was courses listed like Fine Arts Survey or like Global Area Studies, where they were under the guise of electives, but they were kind of forced electives in the way that students needed to be able to take these specific courses, again, like Dr. Skinkis said, that are RB specific in order to be able to graduate. And so rather than take away graduation requirements, to Ms. Haruska's point, when we look at where a school was ranked and, where they're ranked today, and if there's any discrepancy there, we certainly don't want to make it appear that we are lowering standards, that we would take graduation requirements away. But again, to Dr. Skinkis' point, there's been a really big push in education in the last 5 years especially for kids to be able to explore what interests them, and for them specifically to be able to potentially get a head start on what they do when they leave high school, right? Can they get into an internship experience? Can they get into dual credit experiences? And we've done a lot of that work at RB that's been really great to give kids open doors in those ways for kids to discover what they're good at and really pursue that passion. And so when we look at altering graduation requirements and removing those constraints, we're looking at being able to give a student an opportunity to take whatever it is they want to take without us dictating to them what we feel their curriculum should be. So if I'm a student and I fall in love with science my freshman year, and I want to make sure that before I leave RB, I'm able to take all of the courses, anatomy and phys, AP biology, applied zoology, courses that excite me, that I'm interested in, computer science discoveries. We want students to be able to pursue those paths without us telling them they have to be constrained into a box. And so that's what this change would do, is to eliminate some of those somewhat arbitrary requirements that RB has imposed that don't necessarily exist in other schools. We modeled this after many of the schools that we looked at to see what their graduation requirements look like. There often are a section of electives that students have freedom of choice in. There are very few schools that I was able to find, if any, if I'm remembering correctly, where beyond what the state requires, the English, the social studies, the science, those core requirements, schools dictate that a student must take a B or C class unless, for example, it's an intervention class and a student needs that to support their programming or what have you. What we wanted to do, however, also when we look at graduation requirements is try to be a little bit more upfront about what graduation credit requirements mean. And this was actually something that came from Ms. Haruska, and I love this idea of really giving students a clear picture of, if I want to do X after I leave RB, this is the kind of rigorous coursework that I need to include. So the chart at the bottom of this document is new, wherein not only do we highlight what the state graduation requirements are, and as you can see in the blue column, RB is well above what the state requires students to take, but we added a column for community college programs, vocational schools, a column for four-year colleges and universities, and then a column for those highly selective colleges and universities. Because if I'm a student and I want to go to Harvard, while RB doesn't tell me that I have to take 2, 3, maybe even 4 years of a world language, Harvard is going to expect me to have taken that. And so we want to be really upfront with students in terms of, these are your minimum requirements, yes, but here is what other schools are looking for as you progress into the various programs that you might be interested in taking. So that's why there's an addition of a new chart there. But again, the changes to the graduation requirements for this proposal are simply to remove any constraints and truly give students an opportunity to select whatever program they feel is most appropriate for their future plans.
Kylie provided a lot of supporting documents, just makes, I'm sure the board's looked through this already.
Oh, yes, I did.
We're in comparison with all the top 10 traditional high schools as well as districts with high schools similar size.
Yes, so when I initially came to the board on this, I included the top 10 schools, some of the schools that we look to compare ourselves to in terms of what credits they require. And then I also, after Dr. Skinkis provided me with the list of districts with a similar high school to Illinois, I was able to go through those and take a look at where their graduation requirements fall. Again, this is just bolstering the argument that we do not want to reduce graduation requirements. If you take a look, I would say that we are competitive in the area. There's certainly, some of the schools that are hitting that 24 credit requirement certainly, have more rigorous graduation requirements. The schools that I highlighted in yellow are the only ones that I could find that were lower than a 22. And there's actually, and certainly not to belabor the last conversation, but there's a couple of schools, as you'll notice there, that if a student earns additional credits, they get what's called an honors diploma. So that's one example of a way that students might recognize somebody that's a high achiever. Proviso calls it graduation with distinction, right? So there's lots of different ways that we could even use this type of data to help, carve out something, for those top achievers. But I wanted to be able to show kind of where we sit in not only the top 10 high school discussion, but in the schools that are very similar to RB in size and offerings.
Kylie, is your recommendation then that bottom chart in blue is just keep it in general? So culture and applied studies, I know we had worked on a different chart, I'm not sure if it's in.
We kept it labeled just because those are when you look at all of the things that fall under that, guys, those are cultural and applied studies, and we have then the additional electives. So in cultural and applied studies, we talked at one point about, the liberal arts education, right? We do want to encourage our students to explore culture in whatever way that means and whatever way that makes sense to us. So rather than just saying to students, we want you to take 5 electives, we do want to make sure, we feel responsible to enrich our students culturally. So that's why we kept that distinction there and separated it out.
Where are the world languages?
On the cultural and applied studies.
Okay. So then that would be consistent with your 4-year colleges and.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, my premise always is this is minimum threshold. Any student can take more classes if it fits. They can take 7 classes times 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's limiting a student from taking an elective.
Correct.
So that needs to be clear.
You're recommending that this would go, if the board discusses it again at the next meeting, you would like no later action to be taken than the first meeting of October, correct, Beth?
Correct.
Because then the curriculum guide goes out in mid-October, late
Correct.
October, and students start picking classes early November.
Correct.
This change, so basically the 2 classes that are primarily impacted are Fine Arts Survey and Global Area Studies, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And so those classes, that would start with the incoming freshmen, or are you looking to implement this? How are we looking to implement this?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go
Beth.
ahead.
I would be looking to implement it now. Because we're talking about students and giving them, opening up their opportunities and removing their constraints, to me, that's not a harm to students, so that's not something that I would be asking to wait 3 years on. It would be my preference to be able to open up that opportunity for students now.
Beth, your recommendation align with that?
Mm-hmm.
You can say if it doesn't.
No.
It's okay to say no to Kylie.
No, he does it all the time.
That rarely happens.
I just want to make sure, so will there be pushback, or, is there ways for students to get out of this requirement? Some students may have taken it, some students may have not. They still have to complete a credit in that designated area.
Correct.
Correct.
Right? Because here's what's going to happen. If it's not tonight, tomorrow, or the next meeting, the board's going to be the ones getting the emails from the parent of, hey, you eliminated this, my child would have never took it, she would have taken this, or he would have taken. So I just want to make sure we're vetting this as, publicly as possible, as being as transparent as possible, so that when we make a decision on the recommendation of the administration, we're not getting pounded with emails of that we didn't do it right. So that's why I want to make sure we're all on the same page here.
I just want to ask, would seniors be affected by this who have the graduation requirements from before? If you're opening it now for seniors, how is that going to
It would
work?
only start with juniors picking classes for their senior year.
Right, would it impact the class of 2021?
I have a super minor technical question, but I see on the Illinois State required courses, PE has 4, and we're only offering 3.5.
That's because one semester is health,
Health.
and that's allowed under the state code.
I see.
And the Illinois State Code does physical education really oddly. They don't actually require the credit to graduate. They just want you enrolled in
Yes.
PE
Yes.
for the 4 consecutive years, but we are able to do the 3.5 because of health.
Right.
It's not a state graduation requirement, and the state only requires a student take PE 3 days a week for 4 years. So, I mean, there's some things you could adjust if we wanted to do that down the line.
They like to write
But
funny
it's,
things down.
well,
there.
yeah, it just doesn't make
Springfield.
sense on how they implemented that credit, or that mandate.
That was
Requirement.
that was a give and take situation, right? Like that's somebody thinking that that was a win for something. I mean, you'd probably have to go down the rabbit hole to figure out where that stupid thing came from.
How would you even do that, just 3 days?
Well, we're talking about Springfield here, so.
Are there any questions for the administration? I think you addressed it in your presentation, the 1 or 2 that may have been submitted. Is there information the board needs to see at the September COW in order to discuss this at more length, or feel comfortable taking action at the September COW if there's not much discussion tonight?
We're not ready to vote on this?
There's always an opportunity for the board to vote on this tonight.
Sorry, I guess I was in on the curriculum committee discussion, so I feel like we've been talking about this for a long time.
We have.
And I just want to say, I know like we went in sort of with one possibility in mind, but I'm really happy with the way that it all, like we kind of came together and worked it all out and talked a lot about what do we believe about this school and graduation requirements and rigor and some of the other, things we've talked about tonight, like PE waivers and class rank kind of came into this discussion as well at some points during it. And I mean, I think that I went into it, and I guess the reason that I am happy is because I went into it with the thought that now, again, we would be talking about, and I've told you this before, but I'm saying it for everyone, right? Like it would have to be a highly motivated kid, like our 2 friends here in the end. But in essence, one of our students could drop out at 16 and say, this place isn't working for me, but they could give themselves a world-class education online for free and then go be a coder at the age of 18 and make $200,000 a year if they wanted to. I mean, again, that would be a highly motivated kid, but that can happen. Like, that's a real scenario, whereas 20, 30 years ago, or whenever these classes were thought up to be on the course schedule, that wasn't a possibility. That wasn't a thing, right? So we were trying to give them a very well-rounded education. And I still believe in giving our kids a well-rounded education, but I think that they have the ability to specialize so much in everything that they do, in their sports, in their academics, in their clubs, in their whatever it is that they do, that this was the right move.
So a full-time student is required to take 5 classes a semester, correct?
Correct.
So if they did 5, the minimum of 4 years, they'd have 20 credits. By 22, they could still graduate early if they wanted to graduate early in their senior year, have 22 credits.
Yep.
It looks to be more than comparable for a 4-year university.
Yes.
So I guess my question is more process. I think you brought tonight some really good suggestions, the world history, the world literature. I think those are moving us in the right direction to a broader perspective for some of these. What's your cadence to look at all of the areas and kind of review curriculum across the board, right? Are there enough variety of fine art options out there? What's getting used, what's not getting used? Do we have too many APs, not enough APs? Like, at what point are we looking at this more broadly and not as a couple of suggestions here and there? And who's involved in that?
Well, we do a review every year, correct? And we do look at classes. Beth will bring up classes that haven't run for several years, and we make a determination if they should be kind of like pulled from the books. And then we keep some on every year based on, like, if we always have 12 or 15 students sign up for one class, but it never gets to the minimal threshold to run, but we'll keep that on every year.
Right.
So we
Well,
do
that's what I'm thinking.
analysis of that every year around this process, course selection, and then throughout the spring as we're looking at course changes and curriculum guide changes, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and I think some teacher feedback is part of that, which I'm assuming you get, and if you don't, I would would
Well,
would encourage you.
all the courses
Right.
that you, like all the courses that we talked about tonight, those proposed changes, all came from teachers.
Okay.
So Sandy Chaika proposed the computer science
Okay.
course
Right,
because
because
Sandy
they're going to
Chaika
be
is
close enough to
computer
the
science,
students
right?
to say, this is something I know needs to be done. And then that's what I
Yes.
wanted to hear. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's, we as a building have the leadership council, which is the building administration plus the instructional coaches. And that is where kind of those beginning conversations start happening, where we talk about, in an AP literature class, I have Wendy Cassens looking over syllabi because she wants to make sure that our students are reading a diverse perspective, that there are female authors, that there's a multicultural lens. So that's kind of something that our instructional coaches, as their department leaders, are kind of doing all the time. And then once a year, we bring the big group together for a kind of more formalized conversation around what changes and what tweaks do we need to make. And that's sort of where that outgrowth comes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smithy, it's up to you if you'd like to have us bring this back for more discussion, for the board to digest this, or if you'd like to take action.
Straw poll, do we think we need more time for discussion? I do not.
I don't.
This thing. All right. Mona,
Get to read the resolution.
see if you can find it.
The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the modifications to the current graduation requirements as presented in the September 8th, 2020 board agenda packet.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacobs.
This is,
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you, ladies.
Resolutions like
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I know she was
Thank you, Kelly.
excited to come
Thank you,
back
Beth.
next 2 weeks, but find something else for her to come back.
Yeah, right now you don't have to come back, Kylie, in 2 weeks. Notice how he's,
Or Beth?
right now.
What about Beth?
You're okay right now. Right now. Notice I always leave it open.
We'll find something.
All right, moving on.
Quest Memorandum of Understanding.
This is, was presented earlier from Chris, and Kristen did a nice job working with Quest to negotiate this down to the $2,000 a month fee, and also moving some of the satellites are doing a separate MOU with Quest to help with the management fee of still trying to keep our kitchen open to prepare meals for our free and reduced lunch students, but also, obviously, we don't have any daily lunch program for the rest of our students, which is a business that Quest is dependent on to pay their bills and pay their employees. Kristen, did I miss anything else that was added to this action sheet?
No, that is it.
This is the second time the board has seen this, so a recommendation to approve is, the recommendation is to vote on it tonight. However, if you need more time.
Do we have any questions?
There was no questions submitted in regards to the Quest MOU.
All right, Mona?
Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the memorandum of understanding with Quest for the 2020-2021 school year as presented in the September 8th, 2020 board agenda packet.
Second.
Second, Gina Sierra.
It's a roll call vote.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Liability insurance?
Kristen, you can speak to this. I don't think we've had much.
Yeah, there's really no update at this time. We are still working with the two groups that we have narrowed it down to secure an estimate. And those are, we have one cooperative, Skip, as well as Alliant. And so we are waiting to hear back from them. At that point, our insurance sub-advisory council will meet to review those and then present the board with a recommendation. We hope to do that at the September COW, but it's looking more likely probably for October.
I think they asked for a little extra time, didn't they, after they got the last application or something like that for your
Correct.
review? So we have no recommendation tonight, President
Does
Smith.
the other one run out at the end of the calendar year? Or?
12/31, yes.
Okay, so we do have a little bit of time.
Little. When would they prefer to have a decision made, Kristen?
We need to make a decision in October, ideally.
we're ready for you. When you're ready, we're ready.
Thank you.
All right, board policies. Policy updates.
Okay, so we have two policies, independent individual policies. First one, board policy 2:230. It's easier to flip this and start with that. Originally, there was some discussion and some comments submitted by board members in previous packets, and so we were going to just remove it from the packet because from the comments submitted, majority of the board seemed to be happy with the current policy and not amending 2:230 on the length of time someone could submit when they submit a written request. But after further discussion, I think we should just formally agree at a public meeting that that's what the pleasure of a majority of the board is, just doing it in public before just taking it off the agenda. And this is the policy with citizen comments that limits citizen comments to 3 minutes, and then the 10-minute if they submit a request within 24 hours. And so after discussing this individually with board members, majority felt that we should just leave that policy as is. But before I take something off the agenda, I thought it would be appropriate to have, if there was any other discussion that would occur formally at a public meeting.
I don't have any idea to change that policy, so.
Yeah, I just think it's unnecessarily restrictive, to sort of make a policy and say, like, you can't request a 10-minute, I mean, somebody could have something,
Right.
totally legitimate, and so we would hamper our own ability and potentially future boards, so I feel fairly strongly about not changing it, and I'm happy to see it, presented as such here.
All right, do we need to vote on that then?
No, I just, if I'm hearing correctly, it's the pleasure of the board to remove that from the agenda and leave as is until further notice.
Yes.
That's the way.
Okay, that's easy. And then 2:220, work through this again with the Policy Advisory Council. The new recommendations are included. They're highlighted in a blue highlight. Mary Ann, if you could pull that up on the board, page 125 of 273 in board book. You can't really see them out with that far away, but items submitted, so the two changes would be items submitted by board members to the superintendent or the president shall be placed on the agenda for an upcoming meeting. District residents may suggest inclusions for the agenda. And then this is where we were kind of going back and forth on how many times things should be in there. Should it just be considered a practice and not part of policy? And so my recommendation, and then the advisory council agreed, when possible, agenda items that have a budgetary impact or have potential legal ramifications should be presented to the board at 2 meetings. For example, new business and old business, to ensure the board has appropriate time to review and discuss such agenda items. Now, again, I think the caveat's in there when possible, so in the event of an emergency or an event a decision needs to be made, this provides the board latitude, but it also provides the administration, Board of Education's, and down the line until it's changed or amended, that, things dealing with money or contracts with legal ramifications or those types of things, we should try to at least discuss twice or present twice for the board to review.
So I have a couple of questions on this. Maybe there are more comments. So this has been in the packet for a number of months, and this version now is different than what we saw back in a June timeframe, and I'm just a little bit confused in my own head, because if we could just, when we're looking at these policies, just continue to do them as track changes or with edits and additional changes, because the language that I believe, I went back through my notes, that is now different is this potential legal ramifications. Everything is a potential legal ramification. So suddenly we're opened up to everything goes to a second read, which was not, I don't think, the intent. So I'm just, to me, it's so broad as to say everything should have a first and second read. And I thought the discussion we'd had at the board level was about, being able to move regular business along, but with, appropriate consideration for items that have budgetary impact. And so I'm kind of looking at this.
We went back and forth a little bit
Yeah.
as an advisory council, and Gina and Laura, feel free to jump in. Like, one of the things we said is technically we could have just left it as budgetary impact, because if anything should have a legal ramification, we're going to consult with our attorneys or And so that technically could have budgetary impact, so we didn't need the legal ramifications. So that's why we brought this to the board. Like, we're not married to this change. If the board feels, again, that it should just say budgetary impact, you can kind of see what was the original policy, how it reads as is, has a strike through it.
Right, and my point is that we've seen now different versions of the red line, right? So it's been kind of a,
So the latest version is made off of comments that were submitted from board members back in June.
okay.
And I don't want to say it was strictly your one of the edits you sent, but I think I made some of this off of what you maybe sent me. I know it's been on there for a while, so. But I moved that top part, the change in the first paragraph, that used to be in the second. I moved that to the top as suggested. And then originally we had budgetary impact, and we were kind of going back and forth as an advisory council whether or not legal ramifications should be on there. So it's an easy change tonight if a majority of the board would say we should probably just leave it to budgetary impact.
And then my other comment is on that first paragraph where it says district residents may suggest inclusions for the agenda. We probably want to clarify that by following the same process, right? It's not an individual agenda. It has to go through the superintendent or the president to be placed on the agenda.
Okay, good
And
point.
I don't think that's necessarily clear the way it's drafted. You know, district residents may follow the same process or something.
So, question for the board. I can make these two minor changes and bring this back at the committee of the whole meeting. I would just like a little more direction on whether that second change, when possible agenda items have a budgetary impact. Should we leave it at budgetary impact? Or legal, both budgetary impact and legal ramifications?
Thoughts there?
Yeah, I tend to support the striking of potential legal ramifications because that's sort of the default. You're always open to that, I guess. So I think that makes it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with striking it. That's one of the things that we've talked about is every legal ramification has a budgetary impact.
I think the
So
point
it's
we wanted to
implied.
make was that if it was a big money decision, we wanted to read it twice. I think that's where we
That-
wanted.
that was the
I
point.
thought that was the intent, yeah.
That's the point we want to
Yes,
make.
right.
All right. So we'll bring that back again.
Well, unless you guys trust, I think we should bring it back. I
Yeah,
was going to
let's
say, I
bring it.
can make one minor
We
change.
should bring it
but
back. We should have Kylie come read it next
I'll
time.
have the final version at the next board meeting.
The final.
Maybe Nikki should take a look at it.
Maybe it can go on the consent agenda.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Press plus policy.
So these are 104 and 105. The two biggest things in here are policy 2:260 and policy 2:265. There are a lot of mandates sent down by the U.S. Department of Education in regarding to updating school districts' policies across the United States in regards to Title IX and non-discrimination. And so then we worked with our legal counsel to also review those recommendations from the Plus service, and we modified those policies accordingly from legal counsel. Those are included for your review tonight. Otherwise, all the other submissions from the press packet were not changed or amended what was recommended from the state association. So I did not receive any specific questions on 104 or 105. So again, my thought would be if we wanted to put this on with 220 on the consent for the next meeting, give you one more chance to look at it or look it over. That's up to you.
Is this the same group that brought us this new website?
Or you can vote on it.
Let's vote on it.
Yeah,
I'm having the
Mona,
hardest time.
Any thoughts?
Let's go.
Go ahead, Mona.
Okay.
Read away if you can find it.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it. The Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves Press Plus Policy Issues 104 and 105 as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Need a second?
Second.
Second, Tom Jacobs.
Yes.
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 Yes. New business, payment of bills.
Kristen, will you please address any questions were submitted?
Sure, there's one question submitted on Board Book page 207 for golf transportation. The August 31st date was the invoice date, so we will look to try to clarify that moving
I was like,
forward.
were there 9 buses?
There were, but they were from August 21st through the 28th.
Okay, that makes sense.
There is an increased cost for golf, because typically when they would use the mini bus, we do need to get a yellow bus. And so that's why we're seeing more transportation for golf. But we will work to clarify the invoice date moving forward.
No other questions?
Nope.
Any other questions tonight? Mr. Smithing, I think the recommendation is to approve the bills, please.
Right.
Sorry. I just have to make it bigger.
I should have asked a question so I could help her find it.
I got it. The Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, approves the payment of bills as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet. Second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Zalis.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Pay to participate fees for the 2021 school year.
There was a recommendation by some board members submitted about taking a look at the pay to participate fees, since activities will look differently in the 2020-2021 school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Historical fees are presented. We also discussed this at the Board Finance Advisory Council. Just because of some of the activities moving, some are being done virtually. We're going to try to do some in person. Some are being postponed till spring. Sports seasons have been curtailed and also extended over 4 seasons. So one of the recommendations here would be to revise the payment schedule specifically for 2020 and 2021. We want to make clear we're not amending the schedule forever. It's just for this school year. And Kristen, you want to go into a little more detail on that?
Sure. So currently, as you can see, we charge $200 for the first sports, the second sport is $150, and the third sport is $100. Performance activities such as like the fall play or the musical are $75, and a competitive activity like chess team we typically like to use, that would be $100. On April of this year, the board has already approved to cap these fees for each individual student at $350. So in discussing this with the Financial Advisory Board, due to all of the factors that Dr. Skinkis was mentioning, we would like to propose a recommendation that the first sport be $100, the second sport be $100, the third sport $100, and now looking at this, in theory, the fourth sport would be $50 if we're reaching our cap, or you could say $100, doesn't matter. But in theory, someone could participate this year in 4 sports. And then the performance activity down to $25 and the competitive activity for $50. We still would institute the cap at $350. And then also, if a sport or activity does not have an official contest due to the pandemic, the district at that point would issue a refund. So let's say basketball has had practices, but then their entire season gets canceled because of COVID and they haven't had a contest, then we would go back and refund that fee. One of the reasons too we wanted to lower the fee is because that would account for if a student had to miss 2 weeks of their season because they had COVID or they had close contact. You know, they would still be participating, and so there still should be a fee, but we wouldn't have to go running around issuing refunds for individual students nearly as much if we took that into account, as well as, like Dr. Skinkis said, the shorter seasons and the virtual meetings, and just the slightly different experience for the performance activities as well.
So can I ask, if we ever get back to in-person learning, this would remain the same though, right? Like the sports schedule set, no matter what, if we go back to in-person learning?
Yes.
Or the performance schedules, or any of
Correct.
those things you just spoke of?
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna move football back to fall.
Well, yeah, because that's IHSA, but some of these other performance activities, competitive activities.
I would hope we would move as much as we could if we went back, if we went back to regular school and there was a vaccine. In January, we'd want the play to go back to normal, right?
Yes,
I wouldn't.
but for this year, we had talked in the finance council, though, I think her question is like, well, if all of a sudden we do go back to in-person and they could run the musical like normal in the spring, would we shift back to the old pay?
Right, like this
We
would
thought for
stay.
this year, because
No, I would
parents
just
and
leave it.
families were impacted also with
Okay,
job loss and layoffs and things like that,
okay.
that it might
It's been
serve
a
better.
tough year on the community, and I think
absolutely.
Laura exercised that very well earlier, that, the community is suffering. And what we can do to help the community to two more activities, that's a positive. We want the kids to be as engaged as possible with each other, and we don't want money to get necessarily in the way. I mean, we are running a $2 million deficit.
That's 2.1.
It's 1.6, I didn't exaggerate it, I know.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or questions?
It's temporary.
Yeah,
This
it's
would be
just
for the 20,
COVID year.
yeah, I think when and if the board takes, I think it spells out for the 2021 school year.
Okay. Yes, that is in the resolution. I just want to say it again.
Yes, it would just be for this school year until we can get back to some normalcy. Kristen, I thought there was one question submitted from Ms. Zalis about paid participation fees and the amount to the budget or anything. Is there a general summary you can provide on that or a response to that?
Sure, I have some general information. I'm not sure exactly what information the board was looking for, but all local fees, which include not only just these fees, but course fees as well as gate admission. So any sort of local revenue that we have, age group gymnastics, food service commission, all of that is 7% of our budgeted revenue for this year. And if we just look at parent fees, so that includes athletics, activities, course fees, anything that, parents have to pay for a student participating in something. This year is approximately $980,000, and so that's about 4.5%. And then of the fees collected this year, we've currently collected 71% of those fees. A majority of those fees do come in at residency. We collected $627,399 at our annual residency event. And then since then, we've collected an additional approximately $90,000. And that is because if parents don't pay fees or get on a payment plan by September 30th, there is a late charge. And so, we certainly communicate that as often as we can. Having something approved tonight and having some direction for the board would be really important because a lot of the fall sports have begun and they end at the end of October. And so we really want to be able to have something in place for that fall season so that we can move forward with that. We're kind of in a holding pattern right now, waiting for a decision for the board.
So that did answer my question. I think it was just, I wanted to make the point that this is an offset to the cost of running these programs. And we've said in this room how important it is to have these, supporting programs available for our students during these uncertain times. And so making them, I think Wes said it well, making them available perhaps to more students or people who, may be hesitating for whatever reason to sign up for that second sport or chess club or whatever example you want to use. I think this allows us to broaden the base a little bit for this year. And yes, only for this year, I would suggest.
Any other thoughts?
Anything?
I just think that you might have to deal with giving refunds for the parking passes, because I believe that kids did pay for that.
I have.
So in the business office, we're not issuing any refunds at this point until we see how things play out, because the last thing the business office wants to do is issue refunds and then have to backtrack or then issue a second refund or a third refund. So we're well aware of that, but we're kind of waiting to see how things play out before we issue any refunds. It's just too early at this point, but we're well aware that parking would be something that would need to be issued a refund.
And I just have one more thing. So I just wanted to confirm this. So if there's a competitive club like chess club or Model UN, if they had no conferences, would they be issued a refund?
One contest.
Okay.
So
Yes,
if
so
Mr.
like-
Monty sets up a chess match with Fenton, then that's your official contest. There's no, okay?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a state series, doesn't have to be a full conference slate.
I understand.
We're tying this to the same language we use with the teachers on how we're paying stipends on.
All right, shall I?
Go, Mona.
Okay, the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the revised pay to participate fees for the 2020-2021 school year as presented in the September 8th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second, Ms. Salas.
Roll call.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Sierra?
Yes.
Towner?
Yes?
Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Truska?
Yes.
Yes. Matters for closed session.
We got one other one, electric. I think it's
Uh-oh, I missed the
it should be
electric
electricity
contract
contract
extension.
extension, right?
Electric contract extension, I'm sorry.
So we are currently in our second year of a 3-year contract with IGS for electricity. Our contract expires May 31st, 2022. And I'm recommending the board consider a contract extension. Keep in mind, this is a first read. While also switching to a different price structure in order to take advantage of cheaper wholesale electricity costs due to COVID-19 right now, as well as the administration's efforts in decreasing usage at peak time, which is what drives the capacity cost. So currently there are 2 models for buying electricity. There's a fixed all-inclusive cost, which we currently have, and then there's pass-through costs. We're currently right now paying our highest fixed all-inclusive costs. And so we're recommending we switch through pass-through cost structure to take advantage of the administration's efforts in decreasing electricity at peak times. So what happens is in the summer, there are like 16 days where you try to decrease your electricity usage. And this summer we hit all 5 of them. So there's 16 because they're not sure throughout the summer which ones are actually going to be the highest 5. So this summer, through Joel Hatchie's work, we were able to hit all 5 peak capacity days and limit our electricity use during that time. But due to our current contract, we can't take advantage of that because we have a fixed cost model versus a pass-through model. And so by switching, that would allow us to take advantage of that. Conservatively, that would save us $7,740 for this year, but that I think is a very conservative estimate. And working with our consultant, I think it'll be much higher. And then also, wholesale electricity costs have dropped to an all-time low. And so we would be able to lock in that lower rate, which would save us, $12,670 over that 5-year contract. So roughly $2,500 every year for locking in that lower rate as well. A couple of things, as we've discussed with gas in the past, keep in mind that this is a first read, and so when we get to a second read, the prices will change a little bit because electricity costs change every day. And then also, I believe it's the same contract language that we currently have with them, but I'm having legal counsel review that to make sure. And then there was a question submitted about the electricity supplied to RB and if that comes from renewable energy sources. So currently we do not. We currently have power from conventional sources. I did add, because that's the cheapest form of energy and electricity. I did look into this, and IGS can offer 100% renewable green hydro credits, which is the cheapest green option available. That would equate to an additional $4,000 approximately each year in an annual spend for the district, should the district be interested in that. So that would negate the savings, the 12,000, more than the 12,000 savings that I'm presenting. But that could be an option should the board be interested in that. Are there any additional questions?
Any risk by moving to a pass-through contract and not having a fixed rate?
The only risk is that if Joel and his team decided one summer that we weren't going to take any sort of effort to decrease our usage during those peak times. Those peak times always happen in the month of June, I believe. And like I said, this year, without trying very hard, we hit all 5 peak times.
Do we think we can do that in a traditional school year? Like this year in June, we didn't have any camps. We only had 12-month staff in the building.
And I talked to Joel and the consultant about that, and I do believe it is possible. It's only for an hour. And so if you think about it, by the time you shut things down and you have doors closed, things still maintain relatively cool. You know, no one that was here in the building noticed when we shut down for those 16 times throughout the summer this year.
Okay.
So I think I do think we would be okay.
Board would like to digest this and vote on this in September, or put it on the consent for the September cow. Would that make sense, just in case anything else comes up?
Yeah. I think we need.
Yeah, and I think-
a good first read, we can think about it.
Okay.
You still have legal counsel looking at it anyway, so.
Good. Thank you, Kristen.
Also, just really quickly, because I was the person who asked about renewable energy. So, I mean, I'll just make the pitch. I think it's the year 2020. Not getting energy from renewable sources today, in my opinion, is not responsible. So I understand the cost implication and so forth, but, you know, in the village of Riverside, where I happen to live, there is some choices, but the whole village has switched over to doing that. I think for a high school, that is something we should seriously consider.
Okay. Wes, you want to go on to matters for close?
Yeah, matters for closed session. Personnel, sale or lease of property, collective negotiation, and school safety. It's another opportunity for visitor statements. I don't see any visitors. Discussion items requested.
I will touch on Ms. Sierra's question about, you know, what we're going to start doing to plan on how to get back to in-person. I know that was a big question submitted today, and I think that would be a good discussion item for when we give the COVID report in 2 weeks. We're looking at a couple different things.
So, just so that, because I know a lot of parents are asking.
Right. I mean, at this point in time, we know it's not going to be anything during first quarter, to stick with what we discussed. Even though that there's some thoughts about a vaccine coming out in November, the thing that we'd still need to keep an eye on is the guidelines from IDPH, because if during cold and flu season, if they're still going to have that, if you have one symptom, you have to quarantine for 14 days. I think the amount of staff that we would have to quarantine, you know, we already, I mean, we don't have students in the building. We're between 6 and 8 teachers on quarantine right now. So, I mean, we just have to, that all will play into it. The guidelines from the state as they get amended.
It's just interesting that both 95 and 96 are 2-3 weeks into school and they're a hybrid. And from what I hear, it's going very well.
I think the one big thing though
And
is
I think that's why there's a lot of parent
Sure.
questions, because they've got their elementary kids in person and their high school kids aren't.
I think the big thing that it still gets missed in that is that there's no high schools in the area that are in person, because I don't know if anybody's really figured out how to do the whole changing of classes and the congregation in the hallways and the passing in the hallways with the guidelines that are in place about the contact tracing.
Yeah, good.
That's what's the tough part.
Point taken.
But the goal is to get back to in-person, and I think you guys know that. That's my goal, that's Dr. Freitas' goal, and So we'll have some more talking points for you at the September cow.
Thank you.
Consideration of items for future meetings. Okay, then closed session. Guess we need to
Hang on.
read that.
I will. Just have to make it bigger.
Are you not ready?
Sorry.
Well, while she's doing that, I do have one issue for a future meeting.
Yeah.
We had talked over the summer about having some discussion about a racial equity task force or something internally with the administration. I know we've had a lot of things going on, but I don't want to lose sight of that as the school year gets up, so we can get an update on any progress on that front at the next meeting. It'd be appreciated.
That'd be
Thank you.
great. We're going to share some today in closed session, so we can report out on that in the
Okay.
public as well.
Thank you.
All right. The Board of Education, Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jacobs, and roll call.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Ms. Salas?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Yes.